tearing up, man. That's beautiful.
Hello, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. Today is Sunday, April 7th, 2019, and I'm your host, Tracie Harris, and with me today is my very special guest, Phil Ferguson.
Ciao tutti.
Hey, ciao. Ciao, Bella.
Ciao, Bella.
From the Phil Ferguson Show.
Grazie.
And the link is up at the blog along with the open show thread. So I encourage people to go and check it out if you're not familiar. It's got an interesting tagline. It's like atheism, skepticism, and finance.
Yeah. It's the three things you should never discuss with your family. Money, politics, and religion. All in one place.
Yeah, in a single podcast. The Atheist Experience is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin, a Texas nonprofit educational organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promotion of positive atheist culture. You can come out and join us for dinner after the show at the ACA studio at the Free Thought Library, and we take donations. I'm supposed to mention that, although it is free to the public. So just kind of an FYI, we've gotten great turnout. It's really grown, and so we've kind of, mentioned the donation box a little bit more. But again, we don't want anybody to feel awkward about coming in if you don't have the bucks. Like, just come on in, have some dinner. We're just happy to have you.
What's amazing is people plan vacations in Texas, which is cool enough, and they schedule to come to Austin on Sunday just to be at the show.
It blows my mind. Yeah, me too. I mean, you've seen it. We're proud of the little library, but it is, it's a cozy place.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
Wish I had one near Chicago. Somebody's listening.
There's a hint.
There you go. Yeah, I'll just start one.
There's your next philanthropy
Sounds
project.
like work.
It is work, but people do it. They enjoy it, and we've got a lot of good volunteers. So thanks to all of them that keep all this going. It seems like a good time to shout that out.
There you go.
Let's see. So notes. We have the American Atheist Convention around the corner.
They might even have look at that. Wow.
What?
They put a sign up. It says
they
American
do have
Atheist.
a sign.
They can't see me now sticking out my tongue.
I have to choose either being able to see my computer screen or things across the room.
Is it time for bifocals? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah. Actually, I can pull these down and do the granny thing.
I see. The librarian.
Then I'm safe. Yeah.
Do you have them on a chain? Not yet.
No, not yet. I haven't gotten there.
Don't want to lose my cheaters.
But yeah, American Atheist is happening April 19th to 21st. So it's just a couple weeks away. And Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience are both going to be there presenting, representing. I'm not sure who else is presenting or what the plan is for that, but I'm sure there's more information online. And are you going to be going?
I am going to be going, and I'm so glad you asked because my show, again, the Phil Ferguson Show, because I'm a naming savant. The Phil Ferguson Show, with the generosity of several listeners, raised $7,500 to provide scholarships and grants for students. This is students only. If you're in high school or college, contact American Atheists, and they can either give you a night or two comp room. They can help offset your fuel costs to get there. And my vision was that through this generosity that maybe 150, 200 extra students get to go to the conference. It makes the conference bigger, provides more energy because the youngins, they got way more energy than I do. And I'm not going to be around forever. I want to help seed the future and bring in dozens, if not hundreds of new people to help continue this battle.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome. And we also have another announcement, but it's a secret.
Secret.
We'll be talking about it a little bit later. We've got another show that's going to premiere that I will be mentioning, but we're going to sit on that for a little while. I think I know that secret because I was on it. Yeah. So you can keep watching and hear it in a little bit and then get some more information. But for now, you're just getting a teaser. That's it. You just get a taste. And that's it for announcements. Do you have anything?
I have no announcements, but like I said, I will be at American Atheist, so please come. Cincinnati.
What is that? Oh, Cincinnati.
Yeah, I just like saying Sin.
I am not.
Sin. I was Sin twice. Sin. Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
It's really close to the Ark and the Creation Museum, which is part of the reason, so maybe you can go visit that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, fun times.
The Creation Museum. I can do air quotes now on my podcast. I have to tell people.
Something to do on that free time slot, right? Yeah. When you have the schedule and it's like free time on your own, lunch on your own, like go see
And you can go to the Ark and try to figure out how they got the shit from 1,000 animals out of a 3x3 window. Good luck with that.
They were tiny. They shrank them down. They were tiny animals.
Did you see the Ark movie?
Oh gosh, no.
Oh God, with was it Russell Crowe?
I don't even. I remember
and
seeing
Hermione. Hermione was
okay.
she was the one that got knocked up on the boat and had to have magic babies, and they had to be boys.
Oh, I
Because if they were gonna be
totally
girls, they were going
didn't
to.
see this.
Yeah, he's chasing her on top of the deck of the boat with a knife, and is like, "I'm going to kill these girls because they can have children too, and we're going to extinguish our society."
Are you kidding?
No. And then there's these rock giants that have angels inside because the mud got stuck to them because they got cursed. And these
So you could be making all this up, and I wouldn't even know.
Well, let's find
I'd
out.
just be like,
These rock giants actually helped build the boat. So it wasn't just Noah and his kin.
Come on.
And then Noah's granddad was up in the mountains, and he touched Hermione's.
So it's like Lord of the Rings.
Well, yeah,
and the
it's
boats.
kind of like.
And then Oedipus, it's like kind of
Yeah.
something going on there with the,
I like when
the family. And,
Noah's grandpa touched Hermione's stomach and fixed her uterus. That was magical. That was a special moment for me in the movie.
was it broken?
It was. She couldn't have children, but miracle.
And then she started popping out the magic baby.
Well, she got pregnant right before they got on the boat, and Noah was like,
Wow.
"Yeah, we're done. Humans, we're the last ones."
Yeah.
And one of the boys actually trapped a girl in a pit and ended up making her his wife. So that was kind of cool.
I guess that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a
That's
great
kinda
movie.
wild.
Yeah, the scene where he's chasing Hermione on top of the boat. It's movie gold right there.
See, the Bible could have had that, but they didn't. They didn't have the vision back then.
Yeah.
All right, callers. We have lots of theist callers. So let's start with, is it pronounced Saad?
Hi.
Hey.
How are you guys doing?
Good. You're in Pakistan, and you're on with Tracie and Phil. And did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, very few people pronounce my name right. I usually end up going by Sam sometimes, but I thought, why not just go with my real name?
Okay.
Well, as long as you're safe, that's cool with us.
I think he is. So you're looking for common ground, right? Do I understand right?
Yeah. I mean, I've called the show before, and I think I had a very abrupt ending with Matt the last time, and I kind of wanted to apologize.
We would probably
for that.
want to skip that one. I heard a little bit about it as a heads up, and I would say let's proceed with the new topic.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not really an expert on religion myself, so let's not go there.
Okay.
And I guess a lot of the things that people talk about when they bring up historical things, usually some things, in my opinion, some things we may think is the norm right now. Some things were the norm back then, and even today. For example, the drinking age in America is 18, and in Europe, it's 18. So what can you do? I mean, certain things are just the way they are, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Either you break the law, or you don't. Or you
Well, I
follow
mean,
the
you
law.
can alter laws, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's clearly true. So,
Or get some cough syrup.
So let me see if I can help you out here, because a while back, me and some folks from ACA went down to the local mosque, and we attended an Islam 101 course that was put on by the local group here. And there was, I think, a lot of things we had in common, right? It wasn't like I went in and everything they said I was opposed to. So they were very, for example, pro-hospitality, right? So they viewed their religion as being promoting hospitality. I mean, do you agree with that?
yes, I do. And in fact, I mean, I guess it all begins with the traditional Islamic saying, but I want to greet the callers to Assalamu alaikum, which means may peace be on all of you, which I honestly come in peace. I don't want to start any arguments. I don't come here to badmouth anyone, because Islam teaches me to be tolerant towards people who may not be of my faith.
And I also understand that, just because somebody identifies as Muslim doesn't mean that they might think exactly the same thing that somebody else that identifies as Muslim does. Like there's all different groups.
They're very different groups.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. Let me go straight out here, and I'll get to the generosity part next. The biggest threat to Islam, and I'm going to say it very clearly, is not people outside of the religion. It's only been the Muslims themselves. If anyone who's really given a chance for non-Muslims and atheists, agnostics, or anyone else who doesn't believe in the faith to badmouth the religion, it's us, because we screwed up so much, and we haven't really been the best examples of our faith. Unfortunately, I'm saying majority of that's why the media highlights those things all the time. I mean, they totally skip the part where there's people who are really good, the progressive Muslims. They don't talk about those at all. It's just that people want to make news out of these things.
Well, let me just stop. Let me stop you for a minute, and just first, let me just say thank you for saying that. Okay, because we sometimes on the show get on to people in particular religions, not only Islam but Christianity as well, because a lot of times when people behave badly in a religion, people who behave differently or view it differently or have a more liberal view tend to sort of just separate from that, and they don't own it, they won't take responsibility for it, they won't accept that their religion can be interpreted that way or that it can be used that way. So for someone to say, I recognize that there are people that identify also as Muslim that do things that cause problems for Muslims because they're really making trouble for us when they act the way they do, is actually something we don't hear a lot, and I wish we heard more of from people. You know, I'm willing to admit when somebody who's an atheist does things that I don't agree with or that I think, you know, besmirch the label. I know that the only thing we have in common is we don't believe in a God, but that doesn't mean that, you know, people don't see the label atheist on someone else that's acting badly and then associate that with the group. That's going to happen. And so I think it's important for people to say, yeah, that person is also an atheist and they did some bad things. They didn't do it in the name of atheism, but they're still an atheist, and an atheist can still do bad things. And I think it's important that you're willing to say that, you know, hey, there are people who are decent people who wear the label Muslim, and there are people who are, you know, not so good that wear that label too. And I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you so much for saying that. Now, back to the point of generosity. From what I've read about Prophet Muhammad's own history and Islamic history, that Muslims were always taught to be more generous. In fact, there have been stories that I've heard that, you know, there were times when Prophet Muhammad stayed hungry and made sure that the guests were fed. And I'll tell you a recent example. I'm a huge hookah fan. Let me put it out there.
You're a what
hookah.
fan?
So,
Soccer?
Hookah fan.
Is
hookah.
that, oh, like,
the shisha, hookah.
I got nothing.
is that like the pipe?
The water pipe, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I do know what that is. I guess
didn't
I
wanna
just
go there,
didn't
but
think
okay.
that's what you meant. But okay. All right, cool.
Exactly. So one of my friends, when I was visiting Orange County recently, so one of my friends is an Arab, and he was like, I went out with him. You know, how they are, how most Arabs living in the United States have expensive, fancy cars, and they were like, he took me out, and I was like, you know, the entire time he took care of everything. And I told him, listen, I should have at least pitched in somewhere. And I feel bad I didn't. So he was like, no, you're insulting me. That's not how I've been raised. It's supposed to be very generous to our host. And it's a kind of Islamic culture, and it's also a bit of Arab culture too, because they're extremely generous, you know. And we've been taught to be generous too. Like if you ever visit a Pakistani home, you're going to be fed to death. You're gonna have to stop the host and say, listen, enough.
Yeah.
You've taken very much good care of us. Now I think we can't take any more. So it's part of our culture, and it's also what the faith teaches us, that, you know, we're supposed to be generous. We're supposed to give. It's also part of one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It says zakat. You're supposed to give a certain percentage of your income every year. And I guess the problem with human beings is always that, you know, if rules are there. If there aren't rules, and if it's a lawless society, then everything is going to go haywire. So I guess certain rules in Islam are there to for our own benefit. You know, they're not there to like make us oppress people or anything. I know people who have various, especially when it comes to women and modesty, about the hijab and stuff. You know, I'll be honest with you. Growing up, I was never fond of looking at people. I always looked at people with beards as Maulvis, and these guys are illiterate Muslims, and these guys just talking out of their ass, and, you know, nothing. And especially, you know, I was always wondering why women would start taking their job. Why couldn't they just use the Pakistani dupatta, which is it's kind of a cloth that they wear on their head sometimes.
Okay.
I just don't understand why society suddenly changed. Like over the years, I saw Pakistani society becoming liberal to religious and then back to liberal. I guess due to certain politicians who were there. It always amazed me that why are they doing this? Is it a cultural reaction? Or is it that people are thinking that, oh my God, Islam is under threat, so we need to start covering our heads?
Well, I mean, I think Egypt is a really good example, right? So Egypt, when I was younger, Egypt was pretty liberal. and then they got a lot more conservative. And
Exactly.
I don't know that much about it. Someone had explained it to me, basically saying that it had to do with their contact with Western versus Arabic culture, so that apparently there was a lot of, well, I was told there was a lot of interaction with American companies and like contracting with American companies, and that people that were going back and forth and working for these American companies or Western companies were getting a lot more, liberalized, and people were getting a lot more westernized. And then when that ended and they started contracting more for countries that were more, conservative Islam, it started shifting more conservative Islam. I could have it all wrong, right? Like I could be totally wrong about that. It was just something that somebody from the Middle East told me on a flight. That was their explanation for it. I don't know if that's the explanation or not, but I do know that there was a shift. There was a cultural shift. They still were an Islamic culture, a Muslim culture, but they went from being fairly more westernized to being a lot more conservative, Islam during my lifetime.
Because Muslims sometimes fail to find a common ground, unfortunately. I mean, Islamically, all women have been commanded to do is dress modestly. That's it. And and at the most part, you don't have to necessarily wear a headscarf. You can cover. It's basically just, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, that women don't really necessarily have to cover their head at all times. Just modesty is a requirement, and So obviously, and I personally don't think that's wrong. Would you want your mother and your sister?
Oh, I mean, I personally, while I personally don't really see the point to modesty rules, what I will say is that it would be hypocritical to live in a society where people can't run around naked and call some others. You can certainly say that there are more and less rigid enforcements and structures for it. I definitely agree that that's true. And you're even describing some, right? You're saying, well, there are some people who want to cover this woman entirely, and you think she doesn't even need to wear something on her head, just dress modestly. And I'm saying that I personally don't care if anybody's wearing any clothes.
And I would say with modesty, it's none of my damn business.
But
women can wear whatever they want.
Yeah, people can, but the fact is, I can't even here in the U.S.
From my perspective.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is there's this range of what is allowed. And so I think that's kind of what you've been saying, Saad, is that there's a range, right? That there is all this ground that goes from super, super liberal where you don't have to wear anything to cover everything. And then there's all this stuff in between. And that somewhere in between there, maybe people can meet and have kind of like a dialogue that isn't screaming. Is that
exactly.
right? Yeah.
That's true. I hope. I mean, I really don't like that either because I know I in the past show when Matt insulted a prophet and abused him. I know if I would have shared this recording with anyone else, they'd be like, "Oh my God, you didn't react." It's like, why would I react to it?
Yes, different people will react to the concept of blasphemy in different ways. Correct.
Exactly, because the thing is, like in his own lifetime, he was insulted and thrown stones and all sorts of stuff and he didn't react with much to react. Okay. Well, at least I should be trying to follow his example.
Okay.
As a Muslim.
I think that we could probably talk for hours on this, but I'm going to say that we do have other callers, and I do think that you have made your point. Do you think that we are on the same page with this so far?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of common in Islam and atheism, but unfortunately there's the one thing that we can't really reach common ground on. And I'm going to say it.
There's a lot we can't reach common ground on. But your call is about the common ground, so that's what we're talking. So, but I'm going to go ahead and move on. If that's okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to some other callers. But I want to thank you for your call.
Thank you. Just one last thing. I wish there was a way to honestly there was a way to prove God scientifically or in some way. Unfortunately, there isn't.
We wish so too.
To believe in it only.
See, more common ground.
More common ground.
So I wish there was a way to do it. I mean, there's no way to scientifically prove it, and unfortunately, that's the way it is. No matter what kind of explanations people can come up with.
Well, at least you're acknowledging that. We have some other callers coming up who don't. So
well, thank you so much for your time. And I'm
Thank
glad
you.
at least I was able to move through this conversation without any problems. And thank you so much. And I also wanted to apologize to any listeners last week for any comments I made. They were all, I guess we got into a bit of a crazy argument, but I really wanted to say sorry to Matt even, and I hope he peace. And I really do come in peace. So I hope we're cool with everything. And thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
How long has this show been on the air?
A long time.
20?
Yeah, a long
years?
time, yeah.
And how many successfully God-proving arguments have we had?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Right? It depends on who you ask. So
fair enough.
Let's move along. So we have Joel in Athens, Alabama, who wants to talk about mutations in evolution and were they guided somehow? And you're on with Tracie and Phil. Hi, Joel.
Hello. Can you or can any scientist prove that all the beneficial genetic mutations which occurred in the history of evolution occurred by chance?
I think the question is, do we know of any that didn't?
Well, the positive claim lies with you because
I think. All right. Let me put it this way: are you suggesting that something is guiding them?
Well, if they didn't occur by chance, wouldn't it be necessary to say that they were guided?
Okay, so then, for example, if it was natural pressures, would you call that guidance? Because that's not chance.
I would. I don't know if I would call that chance. I don't know.
Right, I wouldn't either.
Really... Well,
so maybe we're on the same page. Maybe we agree. Maybe we found common ground.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious why you call an atheist show instead of asking an evolutionary biologist.
Well, I don't know if an evolutionary biologist could answer it.
Well, then I certainly can't.
Then, yeah,
I mean,
there's one good way to find out.
If somebody's an expert in the field and they wouldn't be able to answer it, I don't know why someone would think I could. I'll be the first to say I am not an expert in biology.
Okay.
It's not my field of expertise.
But I mean, I'm certainly welcome. Certainly, if you want to talk about, I agree with you that it's not chance. That natural, that pressure, selection pressure is not chance. But if you're suggesting that there is some cause beyond what is observable, then I'd like to hear the evidence for it.
Well, there's a difference between natural selection and genetic mutation, though.
Right, but in genetic mutation, but you're talking about beneficial mutations that go on, right, within the species. Okay, so that is natural selection.
Well, natural selection, the way I understand it, is like if there's a certain, for instance, with the example Darwin gives with finches, there's a certain finch that lives in an area where it's required to have a negative beak to feed on a certain type of feed. Mm-hmm. So the animals that have narrow beaks are the ones that survive. The animals that have wide beaks.
Right. So if a bird is born, that's not a mutation. Yes, because what happens is if a bird is born that has something leaning more toward that type of beak, if that type of beak is not amenable to helping it feed, then that mutation will die out, right? If it's negatively correlated to being able to eat. So if it's positively correlated, if it some way makes it easier to eat or gives you more feeding options, right? Now I can eat this other thing too. And I have a broader range of things I can eat than the other birds, that would be a positive, like you said, a beneficial mutation. And because of selection pressures, right, how much much diversity in your diet there is definitely a plus, right? The less things you can eat, the less you are likely to survive.
Okay, but what I'm asking about are the leaps in evolution, for instance.
Right, but they will die out what I'm saying is if nature doesn't support them, then they're not beneficial. Yeah. In order for them to be beneficial...
But that doesn't account for all of evolution, though.
I'm not saying that it does. I'm saying that natural selection plays in even... Like, after a mutation occurs, whether or not it's beneficial is determined by natural selection.
Yeah.
Okay.
By selection pressure, I guess I should call it.
Okay, here's an example of what I'm talking about. Michael J. Behe, in his book, Darwin's Black Box, gives the example of flagella on, like, say, a sperm. It has a flagella. And he says that, he claims that no one can really account for how that evolved.
Yeah, Behe is a bad example to use. Even the university that employs him has put up a disclaimer. If I were you, if you're looking at Behe, you need to look at the responses that already exist to Behe, which are numerous. He was one of the people who testified in the Dover trial, and that's actually, I believe it's still available online if you want to look at it. There's a Nova documentary.
On the Dover trial.
Yeah, on
really good.
What's the name of that though? It's like Intelligent Design on Trial or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a Nova program on intelligent design and when the Dover trial occurred, and Behe was there testifying, and he used a lot of his work, and this was shot down. And
I got to meet that judge who decided that, and he was an evangelical
I watched
Christian.
some of that, but
Okay.
I don't think anyone has ever demonstrated how a flagella could have evolved, because it has.
This is just like the eye. This is just like the eye thing, right? That like part of an eye is better than no eye at all. If you can differentiate dark from light, you're doing better than something that can't.
Yeah. And even if no one has ever proven a particular little thing and how it evolved, doesn't mean God done it.
Well, I know it doesn't mean God done it, but,
Cool.
but there's so many millions of these. How could they all occur in 13 billion years instead of? According to William Lane Craig, it would have taken trillions of years for all
Have you read?
changes to
Have you
occur.
been reading like anybody that wasn't an apologist for this stuff, right? Like that somebody that's
Well, I've
not an
watched the
apologist
debates
for intelligent design.
I watched the debates.
And I'm
what's
not.
the difference between-
I'm like talking about research, right? Like people in like their peers responding to this in the research.
I haven't done a great deal of research. I have. Other
I
things
suggest
to do,
that
but
you do. I really suggest that you do, because Behe came up with this thing called irreducible complexity. It's not a thing.
Yeah, that's what I was with.
Yeah, it's not a thing. The examples that he used have been completely explained, pulled apart. They were jumped on almost immediately after he offered them, and researchers all over the place were just like, "This is how this works."
Well, you make that claim, but you haven't offered any examples. You haven't.
Right, because I'm not a biologist, but I am telling you, and I'm telling anybody else that's interested in looking into it, to look at Behe's claims about irreducible
Well,
complexity.
you're telling me to do the research, but
Yes.
Yes,
I
that's
am.
what we are.
I am.
Because we're not
Well, then give me an
evolutionary
example.
biologists.
Because what I'm telling
tell
you-
me how the flagella evolved.
All right, but here's the thing. I'm telling you that there are biologists who explain this, and that information is available to you. I am also willing to admit that I do not have the encyclopedic memory of the biology research in my head, because I'm
Maybe
not a
you have
biologist.
in the audience. That you
When I get to situations like this,
Wow.
I wonder, do you want to know the answer?
Well, wait. No, he doesn't want to know the answer.
Right,
He'd be
right,
talking to
right.
biologists,
Right,
right? That's
right.
a rhetorical
That's my point.
question.
So
But
when he says
here's
you
the
can't
thing.
answer it-
Here's the thing, though. You just said maybe there's someone in the audience. So what I'm going to do is ask you to post this at the blog, right? Because the blog is for the show, and we have a blog set up, a blog entry right now at our blog at Free Thought. What is it? Free Thought Blog. Let me pull it up. It's freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. And if you go there and post, there is actually a post for this show, like the show that you're watching right now with me and Phil, and it'll say Tracie and Phil, and it'll give the show number. And if you go and you
What is
post
the
there,
URL? Where is this on the internet?
it's called freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. And you can put your questions there, because you basically said, can you ask the audience? I don't know who's in our audience today, but also they're behind glass, so I can't ask the audience.
Okay.
But the blog has a lot of the regular viewers, and they would be happy to give you the links to what I'm talking about. Also, Talk Origins
I was just going to say talk
is a really good website. I have a link to Talk
Okay.
Origins that's at this show site. I always put their
But that's
link.
all assuming you want the answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's what
Of
it's
course I want
about.
an answer. Why
Okay.
would I call?
That is
Well,
a good question.
no, what he's saying, what Phil is saying is, if you wanted the answer, you'd be talking to biologists, not to us, because we're not the
Well,
people.
I wanted
We
to
aren't the
bring it-
people that put forward the theory of evolution. And frankly, what Phil is trying to say earlier, let's say that I woke up tomorrow and evolution fell apart. It wasn't correct. Everything we thought we were doing with artificial selection, what we thought we were doing with dog breeding, is working an entirely different way than we believed, and evolution is just completely decimated in tomorrow morning. It still doesn't have anything to do with a God. It still does nothing.
Well, no, not directly, but
not even indirectly.
Not even, yeah.
You'd have to demonstrate a God exists in order to say that the God was causing anything to do with how species
Because for me, it's
emerged.
like if you want to know the answer, ask an expert.
I agree.
If you want to prove that I don't know everything about evolution, congratulations. You have now done so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have an argument for God's existence that you probably never heard.
Well, why didn't you start with that?
Because it's an old. Well, because this is. I was more interested in this because it's something that William Lane Craig brought up in his debate with Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah, Hitchens is also not a biologist. Just
I'm
for
pretty
the record.
sure he's not a biologist.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
That's why I was saying. That's why I was
talk.
saying that debates might not be the best way to figure out what's going on with biology.
Or YouTube in general, just saying.
Okay. Well, I haven't read a great deal. I know. I mean,
That surprises me.
I haven't read a great deal on it, but
What is your other question?
I mean, I've taken biology classes in university, but okay. My argument for God's existence is that molecules are made of atoms. Molecules are made from atoms. Atoms are made of subatomic particles. Each of these is a component layer. Each component layer is completely dependent on the layer beneath it. So molecules are completely dependent on atoms. Atoms are completely dependent on subatomic particles. There cannot be an infinite series of complete dependence for the same reason that an infinite series of zeros does not add up to one. And so there must be something at the bottom that's completely independent, and that would be God.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know how you know that.
Because it would be the source from which everything comes.
So you're saying that even if it's non-conscious, it's still a God? If it's just a purely natural, non-conscious phenomenon?
That's the problem I have. I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
I certainly don't think there's a good God that's conscious, because that's.
Well, you're basically saying that whatever is like the foundational component of matter, is
God.
Yeah, is God no matter what it is. And it's like, well, that's I don't think most people would accept that that's a God.
Okay.
First time I've ever heard that definition for God.
Well, I mean, there's people that have put things like that out there, like the universe is God, or
And then just call it the universe.
yeah. So I mean, just whatever's at the I don't even know.
Well,
And I can't even verify that what you described is actually even like accurate from a physics standpoint, because again, you're out of my depth. I don't know. But I do know that if it's going to be any sort of a God that has ever been put forward that I'm aware of, that God has to be demonstrated in order for anybody to say that it's like causing matter to exist or to act a certain way.
The problem with that is you have to demonstrate that something is conscious outside, other than a brain.
Yeah, that is a problem.
That's a big problem.
That's not really going to happen. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think.
I agree.
I mean, I'm open to to it being demonstrated, but I'm not hopeful. I'm not holding out much hope, but I'm happy to admit if I'm wrong.
I'm inclined to say from personal experiences I've had, which I won't really go into, that there is something more to reality than just material.
Okay, well, based on the personal experiences that we don't know about and that we're not going to hear about, I can't comment. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next caller. So what we've got next is a frequent flyer here. We've got RAO from Thermopolis, Wyoming. You're on with Tracie and Phil, and you found God's imprint on creation in the Fibonacci sequence. Before you start, I have a question for you. Were you
Go ahead.
Hold on. Were you the person that called last time I was on that talked about double slit?
I was. And
Okay.
It's great to talk to you again, Tracie.
Okay.
And
Hold. Wait. Because
before I start with,
there's a question that came up, and I wanted to find out what your response would be. Your point was kind of like the particle exists a certain way, it goes through the slit, it exists a different way, and it's because conscious observation. Is that fair? Was that basically what you were describing?
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. The question is, does God not watch photons?
Well, when you get into that, it's basically the definition of omnipotence. And does an omnipotent being have the ability to consciously not look at something for the purpose of letting us see what happens when it's not looked at?
But wouldn't the idea that it's not being observed also be contrary to the idea that a God is observing things?
Well, he's a God so powerful he can create a photon
Right.
that he can't see.
Right, but what I'm saying is if God's not looking at it, then he's making it act like he's not there looking at it. So he's actually trying to convince us that he exists by pretending that he doesn't, which is really weird.
Not pretending that it doesn't, but it's just I'm a cook and I have 180 degrees of vision. If I turn around, everything that I used to be able to see is invisible to me.
Yeah.
And this is me as a mortal, normal human being.
Sure.
And I would think that an omnipotent being would have the ability to not look at something for a little bit.
Then he wouldn't be omnipotent for that little bit. But and then what would happen is we would see something that makes it look like there's not an omnipotent God, right?
Well,
it looks like there's not an omnipotent God if something is not observed.
I think that means some photons would behave differently, and you could see where God is looking.
Oh, okay.
And
so
not
we can track
looking
God's
based on
focus.
Yeah. Because they would behave differently, some that are observed.
So the ones that we see that don't change would be the ones that God is observing,
we
right?
don't know which is which. Which ones are looked at and not looked at?
It gets really simple when you get to the macro scale opposed to the quantum scale, because we're huge relative to a photon.
So is God, right?
Yeah, I've been trying to lose weight, though. It's...
Damn it, Phil, you look great. Quit with that shit.
Hey, thanks.
But it sounds like God's acting like he's not there in order to convince us that he's there.
It's not necessarily acting like it's not there. It's simply using omnipotence to change the direction of focus or limit the direction.
You don't need omnipotence. You don't need to be omnipotent to change your focus. I mean, if I believe in an omnipotent God, then that God knows everything. Right. And if I go looking for it and I find a space in the universe where God doesn't seem to be existing right now, that would be different than the God that's being defined, and it would appear to be evidence that God is not what it seems. Now you're saying, well, it could be accounted for by this other thing, but it also could be accounted for by a God's not looking at it. By there is no God looking at it.
All right. It would be the plane above us looking at us, and you see that humans are performing an experiment.
Airplane or
no, plane of existence.
Okay, I'm just
sorry
making sure.
about that.
No, that's okay. I wasn't clear.
Yeah. But you're different plane of existence looking at us performing the experiment. And they're like, well, they're actually looking for us, me, it, whatever it might be.
But we're not. And I guess that thing is we're not. This wasn't a test to see if a God exists. So this was nobody looking for God.
No, the original double slit experiment
was not a search for the Lord.
Right, but it's all fourth dimensional.
Right, but you said God would see that we're looking for God, and then it would react to let us know. If God wants us to know we're there, if God is willing to tell us that he's there, and he's willing to give us direct evidence of his existence, why doesn't he just present himself?
Well, it happens 50 to 80 years later. The actual quantum eraser delayed choice experiment.
I guess what I'm saying is if God wants people to know God is there, why the hell is he making it so damn hard? Why did he make it to where we had to build these facilities to look at these particles and get this way to observe some atomic? I mean,
it didn't used to be that hard.
Yeah, how is that helping us recognize the existence of a God? It sounds like he's making it extremely complex and difficult. And then he's pretending he's not there in order to prove he is.
Back in the day, there were a lot of gaps. There was a God of the gaps, and people were confusing the God of the gaps with something on a higher plane.
Right, but you're saying God wants to present us with evidence of his existence, and that seems pretty simple. I mean, I have a cat, and I could present people with evidence of existence that they would almost universally accept.
Cat litter.
Well, just the cat itself. There's the cat.
Like that, but I smell the cat litter when I walk in.
I mean, yeah, but if God wants people to know that God exists, and God is willing to offer direct evidence that you say is like really clear, really irrefutable, right in your face, then why can't God just present?
We weren't at a state where we could accept it. We weren't smart enough. We were primitive. He was trying to teach quantum mechanics.
Now, wait a minute. God spoke to Adam, right? Like, God talked to Adam. God talked to Abraham. God presented himself to all kinds of folks.
Okay, I don't see the Abrahamic religion as being led by the same God I'm talking about. I actually told this to one of your I've actually told this to one of your commenters. My opinion of Yahweh, probably an alien, definitely an asshole, most likely dead by now.
This is like Stargate talk now.
Yeah,
I love that show.
I think you. So are you associated or affiliated with any sort of religious belief?
I am.
What is your religion?
I don't have a name for it.
Okay, now wait a minute. Are you affiliated or associated with any recognized religious belief?
No.
Okay, so you've got your own religion here. You've developed your own proprietary. I mean, there's no law that says you cannot do that. I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. You basically have made up your own religion.
The religion of one.
Okay. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I mean, hey, somebody has to start the stuff, right?
That's right.
I mean, somebody comes up with all of them, so there's always an origins or oranges. There's always an oranges for religion. So
we gotta respect the oranges.
Yes.
Hallowed be the ori.
Okay, so you've got this religion, and I totally have derailed your call, but it was just such serendipity that I saw your name again on the board. So I apologize for derailing the call, but there was the question that came up.
Not a problem at all. Thank you for letting me explain it again.
Yeah, and I can tell you that I have heard people try to explain the Fibonacci sequence, and the only thing that I get is like the seashell. Right? It's like there's a seashell.
Right.
And that's about as far as I can understand it. It repeats. The seashell pattern repeats.
Before I actually started my call, I actually wanted to say something to one of your hosts because I kind of missed the date, but for bravery and valor, Matt, the threat to theism Dillahunty has reached experience level 50. I think you get like a new feat and plus 1 to 2 attributes for that.
I don't know what that even means.
He reached experience level 50 last week.
Oh, his birthday.
Oh, because he had a birthday.
Oh,
okay.
I was worried you were quite tethered to reality.
I was like, do you follow Matt in some gaming thing or what? Because I know he does games and
extra hit points.
I had no idea. I got no clue. But yeah,
-1 for
I think he had a birthday.
I'm glad he does, though.
That he does what?
Yeah, we missed.
Sorry, what?
That he's into D&D and gaming and whatnot.
Oh, I don't know what games he plays. I just know he plays that he does. He has stuff loaded on his TV. That's as much as I know. There's things that you can play with the controller. But we're getting really sidetracked. I did sidetrack you. Would you be okay calling in again another time with the Fibonacci thing? Because we've kind of spent some time on the call, and I do apologize. I derailed it, but I felt like it would be an interesting conversation, and I hope that's okay.
It definitely was, and I can call next week if you'd like.
Thank you so much.
Anytime, I guess. You're getting kind of frequent on the calls. Maybe skip a week and then, do something fun next weekend and then call back the weekend after. Take a break.
A month before I called this time.
Oh, you know what, though? It seems like yesterday because it was when last time I was on.
Oh, yeah.
So it just seems like it's frequent for me. All right, well, thank you.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, thank you, Tracie. Thank you, Phil. You all have a great one.
All right. Okay, so I haven't accidentally hung up on anybody yet. That's good. I did that last week. So we have one more theist that is here from the beginning of the show. And this is really interesting considering the movie you were talking about.
Uh-oh.
We've got Noah from Arizona.
Oh, Noah. Hello.
Yeah, who's on with Tracie and Phil. And it says here that you're a Mormon and you lost a bet to an atheist employee. And so you had to call in. And you just want to talk about why you believe. Okay, well, first of all, Noah, we are not mean. You called on the day with the nice host.
And me.
Yeah. And Phil.
I do want to know what the bet was. I'm very interested.
He bet that something.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Briefly, what was the bet?
I own a carpet cleaning company, and we just bet on. So my employee has been going on and on about his atheism for a long time. He's obviously my best employee.
Wow, thank you.
Now,
Yes, atheists are fantastic employees, let me just say.
Hey, you're my best employee, don't steal from me.
Yeah.
But
Hire atheist.
we did a big school, all the carpets, and we bet on who could finish first.
Okay.
Very nice. That sounds like fun. I love those.
He's 10 years younger than me, by the way.
Right.
So,
well, I'm going to say that because you made good on your lost bet and you were brave enough to make that bet.
Well done.
And you called the show. We're gonna be nice, and so I'm nice anyway. Okay. But we're gonna take into account that you're strong armed into calling. So let us hear it. Go ahead.
I honestly don't know what to say. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Yeah, sure. So have you? I mean, were you raised in raised in the church, or is it something you joined?
I was baptized. Actually, March 28th. I call my B day.
Okay.
I was baptized March 28th, 1999.
So were you at all religious? Did you switch from one religion to another? Did you switch from no religion to Mormon? Like, how did that go?
Well, I was Catholic when I was young.
Okay.
And my parents divorced, and my father's not religious whatsoever, and I went with my father. And so I didn't follow any religion, but he was very much, he wasn't non-religious like, atheist. Talking bad about religion.
So, I mean, this is weird, but your mother was Catholic and your dad was not?
Okay. I hope they don't listen to the show. So my dad was Catholic, but he left the church and then they divorced.
Okay, now I understand. Because I was like, how were they married?
I was going to be getting into my childhood.
Okay.
I had no idea I was going to be getting into my childhood.
That's okay. This is like just a chat, right? We're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and please, if there's anything that I ask and you're just like, I'm not comfortable talking about that, or I don't want to answer that, or that's too personal, just say so. You're not required to answer everything if you're not comfortable with it.
No one listening anyway.
Yeah, so it's just us.
Well, so my employee, his name is John. Hi, John. How you doing?
Shout out to John.
He's always talking about, shout out to John. You're the best, whatever. I'll give him some trouble tomorrow. But
he had to say that. It was part of the bet.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so go ahead.
But, March 28th, I joined the church. But before that, I lived in Texas, moved back to, so I grew up in Arizona, moved to Texas for high school, and then I lived in New York, yada, 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 moved back to Arizona and lived on my own. And a couple of sister missionaries approached me, and they gave me a challenge to pray, and I prayed. And it was right before a job interview, and I didn't think I was going to get it. And they told me if I pray, I will get the job guaranteed. And I prayed somehow.
And you got the job. Let me guess.
I got the job.
Okay.
I got the job. I showed up late even to the interview, and the guy interviewing me was kind of a schmuck. I feel bad for saying that, but I got the job. And from there, I took the missionary lessons, and I joined the church.
Okay.
And I went on a mission even.
Okay.
So I served a mission in Washington 2 years, and that was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Okay. So basically, is it correct then that prayer experiment is kind of what got you believing that God was working in your life?
Yeah, because, I drove a real fast Camaro at the time, and I was just living this young man's life, and I pulled over my Camaro, and somehow I wasn't going to pray before I went to the interview, but I did. And I prayed, and sure enough, I got the job. It's more than that. There's a lot more things. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of nervous about this.
It's okay. No, you're doing fine. Do you, or do the people that spoke to you, or I guess you can't really speak for them, but I mean, is it the case that you think that anytime you pray for something, God will come through?
Well, sure, when I pray diligent enough.
So then you could pray diligently for someone who's dying and they won't die.
No, I can't make miracles happen, you know.
So there's a lot.
Wait a minute. No, we're not talking about you. We're talking about God. Right? That if you pray, God yeah. And so I'm saying if you pray, will God come through for you all the time?
No.
Okay, so sometimes God says no, right?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
So sometimes when you pray, wait a minute, I'm trying to figure this out. So sometimes when you pray, you get what you want, and that's evidence that God exists, right?
Yeah.
And then when you pray and you don't get what you want, that's God existing and saying no.
That's like the learning curve, you know?
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is there any way in this experiment that there would be a negative result for a God, or is any result God?
Does God sometimes, I mean, if the question is, does God sometimes not answer my prayers?
Well, does he? I'm not saying that he doesn't answer, but he answers and says no, right? Says this is not the thing for you.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is, if I do a test to see if there's a God, and there's a God whether I get what I pray for or not.
There's always, yes.
Then how is that a test?
You need to be able to show a negative.
It's not a test per se, like as far as...
But it was a test because they basically said you'll get a yes response if you pray. But here's the thing. What if that job would have been like the worst thing for you and God would have said, hey, no. That's a bad idea for you to get this job.
It wasn't a great job.
Okay.
I heard the boss was a jerk, too.
Yeah, I heard he's a schmuck.
Yeah, it wasn't a great job.
I mean, here's the thing. I understand what you're saying because you are one of like a ton of people, including me, who believed that God was working through prayer in their lives, right? So I believed that too. But what I started to realize...
You don't believe it now?
No, I don't believe it now. And part of the reason is because
You guys don't believe in God?
Well, no, that's why he's asking you to call our show.
That is correct.
Yeah. And so what happened with me is that I started to realize that a God that answers sometimes yes and sometimes no is kind of... And I hope this isn't offensive phrasing, but there's like a colloquial term that says shit happens. And this is kind of the same as praying to a God that sometimes gives you what you want, sometimes doesn't. It's no different than stuff just happening to you. How is it different?
I would say I can't say it's different.
Is it possible that things are just happening to you that you sometimes try to influence, you sometimes don't, but just, sometimes we all, like I could work very hard for something and not get it. And I could be deserving of it and not get it. And I could also not even try for something and then get it, right? And this happens to people all throughout their lives, whether they believe in a God or whether they don't believe in a God, because everybody who goes through life, things happen to them, right? There's a little book that I found one time, and I took it as, it was very funny to me as an atheist, but I'm sure it was meaningful to people who were religious. And on the cover of this little journal, it said, pray until something happens. Something is always going to happen.
Well,
eventually.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean...
Yes, something's always going to happen.
Right.
But, I mean, your name's Tracie, right?
Yeah.
Tracie and Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right?
Wow, that's very good. Thank you.
Okay. I wrote it down thinking,
good
that
choice.
That was y'all's names.
That's awesome. Thank you.
But Don't you feel the presence of the Savior in your life?
No, I used
one?
to believe that that's what was. I used to believe that was like my whole life was just guided by that, and I would pray about everything. And
You gave that up.
yeah.
I don't know if I say give it
Why
up.
would you do
Well,
that?
I did give it up. I mean, I did give it up because I came to understand, first of all, that the holy books that I was putting my faith in were not really holy books. They were books written by
They
people.
got nothing to do with holy books.
That's
It has
fine.
to do with
Yeah.
how you feel.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that I felt that the God that was working in my life was the God of the Bible. And so when I realized that the Bible God that there wasn't a Bible God, that the Bible itself was just not really what I thought it was, and when I started to understand how the Bible was put together and that this was just something that people produced, then I had to realize, like, wow, so then what is God? What is this thing that is working in my life? What is this stuff if it's not the Bible, if it's not the God that's in the Bible, if it's not Jesus? And so then I started looking to try to figure out what is God. And I had lots of conversations. It took me about 10 years of conversations with different people, putting my ideas forward, having my ideas challenged, having to explain myself and realizing that I couldn't. Really, really looking at what other people were saying and what I thought was right or wrong about it, what they were telling me was right or wrong about what I thought, just having these conversations, looking at information. And ultimately what I started to realize for myself, the way that it happened for me, which is different for everyone, was that I was like, if there's a God, that God would be everything. That God would be good, it would be evil, it would be dark, it would be light, it would be just like every contradiction of everything. It would just be all things and nothing. And when I started to think
Kind of like,
when I started to realize that, what I realized was if it really would be everything and all-encompassing, then it would be the universe, because that's everything.
And we call that the universe.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what happened in my head. And then I was just like, wow. And then I started going back and looking at things like what you were just describing, the way that I would pray. And if I didn't get what I wanted, I felt like God was looking out for me. Like God was not letting me have something that I might want, that maybe he knows better and there's something better down the road, or this thing might not be good for me. And so I always justified not getting a thing instead of just saying, maybe I just didn't get it. Maybe I just didn't get that job. Maybe I just did get that. There were jobs I had that were nightmares that I wish I hadn't have gotten, right? Like at the time you get it, you're thinking great. And then I would get into it and it would be like really awful and I couldn't wait to get another. It was really difficult to get another job, And so, but all that time when I was attributing it to a God, I realized it was almost like one of those movies where that you find out that the killer isn't the killer. And then they go back and they show all the scenes and you're like, oh, it wasn't them. And you thought that it was. And I looked back at all these things and I was just like, I was attributing all of this to the hand of God, but really it was just stuff happening in my life, like stuff happens in everybody's life. I just was putting this layer of God on it. And I don't know why.
Sometimes you get a job and sometimes you don't get a job.
Yeah. And you can say it's God, or you can just say I didn't get the job, or I did get the job.
I'd say this about you, Tracie. You would make a fantastic member of my church.
Except I
so
can't
well-spoken.
believe that the Israelites came to North America
On a
as an
boat.
ancient tribe. Like, that's just too much. And I don't need are these the people with the planets, or is that somebody
Yeah,
else?
they got planets. And Tracie, I can see you
I
with 10
can't.
kids.
Yeah. I can't do that. Yeah.
Have you guys heard of the 13 Articles of Faith of our church?
Probably not. We
I'm sorry, not
don't have the highest opinion of faith.
My church.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, all of them are kind of like, okay, so if you went to like the Pope or the head of other churches, I don't know the names of their other churches.
okay.
But if you ask them what you guys believe, and the founder of our church is somebody named Joseph Smith.
Yeah. Heard of him.
And he wrote down,
Palmyra.
so you know about our church.
Well, I mean, Mormons are pretty famous, but I guess my problem would be that I don't think that there's a God at the source of this stuff. I think people are doing it, and they're attributing things to God, and really it's just people doing it. And I don't see any evidence that there really is a God doing it, because when they do things, the things that impress them are the same types of things that impressed me, like what you were describing with the prayer experiment. You got the job. If you hadn't got the job, according to you, that still wouldn't be a negative result, right? Because there could still be a God who was
No,
looking out for you.
It would have been for me then.
Well, then can you set up a new test?
Sure, I have.
Yeah,
Right, but we've already established, though, that
Well,
even if it says
here's
no.
my suggestion. You take like 5-gallon pickle buckets, and you take 10 of them, and 9 of them you put a mouse trap, and the 10th one you don't, and you have sets of 10 lined up 4 or 5 times, so you got like 50 mouse traps, or 50 buckets, and you pray that God will guide your hand into the bucket without a mouse trap, and you stick your hand in there, and if you get snapped by a mouse trap, that should tell you something, that either God's not there or he's not looking out for you.
Yeah, but you got to realize that some little experiment with buckets and mousetraps isn't going to be something our Heavenly Father is going to care about.
How do you know that?
Well, he should care about if somebody believes in him.
No, I guess I shouldn't have said care. I should say if I'm like, hey, I'm gonna put you on trial right now.
Yeah, see, this kind of goes back to what Tracie was saying, is that if you get the job, God wins. If you don't get the job, God wins because he doesn't want you to have that job. If you don't
win.
Because if you don't get the mousetrap, God guided your hand. If you do hit the mousetrap, it wasn't worthy of God's time. I mean, there's no way for God to.
There's a video online, and I don't know whether to recommend it or not, but it's just about. I can summarize it for you so that you don't have to sit through the whole thing. But it's basically like pray to a milk jug.
Oh yeah.
Right. So get yourself a empty milk jug and pray to that milk jug, and see if the milk jug answers your prayers the same way God does. Does the milk jug sometimes?
But you've read the Bible, right? I mean, you know you can't.
That's why I'm an atheist.
No, I'm not tempting God. I'm saying pray to a milk jug for a month and see if you get similar results that you get when you pray to God. Like when you pray for things, do you sometimes get them and sometimes not from the milk jug? And do you then believe when you do get them that the milk jug has answered your prayer?
Well, I don't ask for quantifiable results.
Well, can I get a job?
A job's pretty quantifiable.
Yeah.
But
that even makes the test. Wait, that makes it even weirder of a test, right? When you're not even asking for something that can be quantified. Like you're sort of making this thing softer and softer. I think you could plug in a milk jug, pray to the milk jug, and you will sometimes get what you want and sometimes not.
Well, I've got another line of questioning for you. Does God have a plan? Does he know everything that's going to happen in advance?
Of course.
Okay. Why do you pray at all then?
Because I want to speak to my Heavenly Father.
Right, but you're asking him to change something. And who are you to ask?
I'm not asking him to change anything of his plan.
Did you ask to get the job?
Oh, no, not at all.
You didn't ask?
No, I didn't ask for the job. The sister missionary said if I pray before I go to the job interview, I'll get the job. So when I prayed and said, Heavenly Father, I'm here.
Okay, so I'm so sorry.
And I asked for nothing.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time keeping up, so forgive me. I have problems sometimes. They said if you prayed before the job, you would get the job.
Before the interview, yes.
Right. Thank you. You prayed before the interview, you would get the interview. You'd get the job. Did you want the job?
Yeah, I had nothing.
Okay, sure.
I had 2 nickels.
Sure. And when you prayed, did you know that you were more likely to get the job by praying because that's what they told you?
Yeah, I felt.
Okay.
I felt.
Sure. So you can semantically dance around it with word definitions, but you prayed with the intent of it influencing the probability of you getting a job. You got the job.
Sure.
And then you recognized that you getting something was a result of the prayer, so you did pray for something. So you can't now say you didn't pray for that reason.
You know what, I have to say you're right. However,
I like you.
When I got the job, I didn't even know, okay, so I said a sister missionary. I didn't know she was a sister missionary. She had a little tag on. And looking back to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and said her name. And she told me about this at the gas pump. I was putting gas in my Camaro. I had a Camaro back then. And she said, if you pray, you'll get the job. And I prayed and I got the job. And I didn't know she was part of the LDS faith whatsoever. Okay. And I've talked to John about this. A couple of weeks later, I was working and a couple of elders knocked on my door, missionaries knocked on my door. And they came into my apartment and they saw this pamphlet that girl gave me. And they said, what is that? And I said, there's a pamphlet. And I told them what happened. I told them this girl said, if you pray, you'll get the job. And they're like, whoa, holy cow. And they started teaching me about the church right then. And so it wasn't like what you think. I wasn't like, I'm going to pray, I'm going to get the job, God's going to come through. And obviously, if I didn't pray and didn't get the job, I think my bigger picture was not that job. That's not the job I have now. I've gone to college, I have a good job. I think the big picture was this sister, the Spirit telling her to ask me to pray about this.
Right, but the problem is you don't know if you hadn't prayed that you wouldn't have still gotten the job.
Yeah, it's not the best.
Right, so...
Of course I don't know.
Right, and so it may just be that she told you to do something and you did it and it was completely irrelevant to whether or not you would get the job. That had you just blown it off and gone and, watched TV instead, that you would still have gotten the job. That's the problem. This experiment is not a really well-designed experiment, is the part of the problem. The other issue that
It sure isn't.
Right. The other issue that I have is that there are people who have different gods who pray for things and they get them.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason why I brought that up was because that's one of the reasons why I'm part of this faith.
Right, but I'm saying there are people who are in other faiths. There are people in other faiths who have other experiences, right? That have similar experiences to yours, and they have different gods.
If someone prayed to Muhammad before going to a job interview and they get it, does that mean that they're right and you're wrong?
Or what does it mean? Right? I don't know what it would mean.
No. It means our Heavenly Father is looking after that person no matter what they're doing.
Okay, so what if Allah is the true God and he's looking out for you even if you're a Mormon, even if you're in the Mormon church?
Then, I don't know. I don't believe in Allah.
I know you don't, but you just said that it's possible that you could be feeling like God is helping you out and working in your life, and you could be following along the wrong God. Would you rather be following the true God?
Of course, I am. I'm following the true God.
Right, but you just basically finished saying that there could be a Muslim somewhere who's having the exact same experience as you, and it's because your God is looking out for him. And I'm saying, what if his God is looking out for you?
Well, that human is also being taken care of by our Heavenly Father. One thing I didn't like when I was a kid, when I was a Catholic, right? I remember one of my earliest memories when I was a Catholic. His name was Father Simon. It was a father up there. He was great. He used to have a fishing pole, and he used to sit there and I'm a fisher of men. And one time it was a different father, and I stood up in church as a little kid and I said, "Hey, Mom, there's a different God." And everybody was shunning me for that. But one thing I remember when I was a kid is that if you weren't baptized and you weren't Catholic, that you're kind of not going to paradise. You're not going to heaven. And, or you're in purgatory. I'm not a Catholic right now, so if there's Catholics out there listening, I apologize because I'm not sure about that. But, one thing about the LDS faith is that if you're Muslim, if you're a guy in the jungle that worships a totem pole, and you have never heard of Jesus ever in your life, you don't know about his struggles, his sacrifice, you don't know about our Heavenly Father, the Spirit, anything, there still is heaven for you. Not just heaven. You can be with our Heavenly Father.
Right, but what if you're wrong, right? What if you're wrong?
What if I'm wrong?
Yeah, what if you're wrong?
What if you have the wrong religion?
What if you're following after the wrong God and the wrong doctrines?
That's what I'm saying. If you're wrong, like this Muslim fellow,
Yeah. He
still can be in heaven.
Right, but what I'm saying is, what if your view that everybody who's got the wrong God is going to heaven is wrong? What if that's wrong?
What if I'm wrong?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Well, then I'm sure I'm very intuitive. I'm very in tune with what is right and wrong in my life.
Okay.
And I would know that this is wrong for me.
Well, I'm not saying wrong for
know
you, but couldn't something be wrong and still feel good to you? Because look at all those other people. I mean, you're basically saying that people following other religions who have different doctrines are all wrong and they have no intuition to speak of that can guide them. What I'm saying is there's somebody right now in another religion saying that they have all these great internal compasses as well, and that they are totally sure that they are following the right religion, and you will burn in hell because their religion is right. And if you're wrong, wouldn't you want to know that?
Yes. However, Joseph Smith asked Heavenly Father about that.
You think?
And he said, what other religions are there?
Right, but what if Joseph Smith is wrong?
There are a lot of religions that claim that they have done the very same thing and they're the only one true path. How do you know they are wrong?
Well, I'm not the John, I guarantee you John is listening right now. John, you're in trouble. Look, the point is that our Heavenly Father has given that answer.
You're saying this, right? You're claiming this. What I'm saying is, how do we know you're right and that these other people making opposing claims are wrong? How do I know that? As somebody who's hearing all these claims from all these different sides that conflict. Because some people say you die and go to hell. You're saying everyone dies and goes to heaven. And I'm saying, how do I figure out which one of you's got it right, or if any of you have it right?
If you feel like it's wrong, then you shouldn't do it.
So if I feel that Mormonism is wrong, I shouldn't do it.
Absolutely not.
But wait a second. I have an example that I use sometimes, right? So let's say that I'm going down a dark alley and I'm going to my car after a late night out partying downtown. And I decide to take this shortcut through this creepy dark alley because it's just going to save me a couple blocks, right? So I just want to get where I'm going. And I start getting in this alley, and it's getting kind of dark and creepy, and I've had a little bit, and I'm like trying to get to my whatever.
It's a regular night for you.
Yeah. And so maybe I'm not really drunk. Let's take drunk off the table because I'm going to my car. So I'm heading to my car, and it's like late at night, and I start walking down the alleyway, and there's this big dumpster parked on the side of this building, and I see something moving that looks like maybe someone is crouching behind this dumpster. And I start to feel nervous, and I start to feel scared, and I start to feel concerned. And I start asking myself, should I turn around maybe and go back, or do I even want to turn my back on whatever or whoever that is behind that dumpster? Should I have even taken this alley shortcut? Was this a really bad idea? And I start getting that kind of hot, nervous fear, and I'm kind of slowing my pace and wondering what I should do, and I'm afraid that I'm going to maybe get mugged or attacked or worse. And as I get a little bit closer, I see that it's just a loose garbage bag blowing in the wind. And then I feel relieved, right? Like, oh, I'm so glad that it's just this. And then I get out of the alley and I'm like, okay, maybe I don't take the shortcut again. That was a little bit scary. So here's the thing. My feelings did not align to what was real. Right? I felt strong fear for a garbage bag because I thought that it was a person that might be hiding, which there's not a good reason to hide behind a dumpster late at night in a dark alleyway, except if you want to.
There might be good reasons, yeah.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Not good reasons.
I'll talk to Phil later about his reasons. But the thing is, feelings are not the best way to determine whether or not something is true, because our feelings are feedback about what we believe is true. They're not telling us information about what is true. They're telling us how we feel about what we believe is true, even if we're wrong. Isn't that right?
Yes.
So a feeling is not the best thing to go on because it's just reinforcement of your own belief. So you already believe it, and then you have the feelings that go with the belief because you believe that. Just like if I believe it's something scary, then I feel scared. The belief isn't informing me that there's something to be afraid of. It's just reflecting my fear.
But Tracie, see, when you were walking down that dark alley, and you're taking this shortcut in some downtown city. I don't know where you guys are, but
we're in Austin.
Let's pretend it's downtown.
Sure.
Okay. Austin, downtown Austin. I've been to Austin. Hey, Ziggy, I don't know if you're listening.
Okay.
If you're going down this dark alley and you see something and suddenly you start feeling emotional about it, you start feeling scared, what do I do? That's an evolutionary response right there.
Yes, I agree. But my point isn't that it's not normal. It's that the fear is just an emotion that goes with what I believe, even if what I believe is wrong. Whether what I believe is right or wrong, whether it's true or false, the belief is going to follow, the feeling is going to follow the belief. And so if I have an incorrect belief, I'm going to have a warped feeling that goes with that.
You're going to have a genuine feeling about
Tracie,
something that's not
you're
true.
not getting the point. Hold on, Tracie, you're not getting the point. What's wrong? The point is, your belief was correct. Because if you're walking down a dark alley and there's somebody crouched down there, and it really isn't somebody, it's a garbage bag, and you're scared for no reason, that's fine.
I'm not saying
But
it's
if
not
there
fine.
is
I'm saying
somebody
it's not proof of a person crouching behind a dumpster. And what you were...
It isn't a proof behind them there, but your belief that you have intuitive inside of you is correct.
No, it's not, because it was just the garbage bag. What I'm saying is that when...
What if it wasn't?
Okay,
So,
but that's not the point.
Let me jump in because I think you're talking past each other. Are you saying that her belief is correct and her emotions are correct because that's what she really thought was there?
No, I'm saying that if we're talking about, because you guys are a religious show, right?
We're an atheist show, so yeah, if you want to
to
label it that, that's fine.
So if you're talking about, you want to bring this to our Heavenly Father. So you're walking down this alley and you're getting this intuition that something is there. And there isn't something there, okay? Yet you get scared, you recoil, you're not feeling comfortable. That's a correct response.
Right, but what you're saying is that you're saying that because you have intuition that heaven exists, then that's evidence heaven exists. And what I'm saying is it's not. If I have an intuition that there's somebody behind that dumpster, that is not evidence that there's someone behind the dumpster. And you're even saying that it's good intuition, even though it's based on an incorrect belief. And what I'm saying is your intuitions, you may have an intuition and you may have a feeling, but that does not mean that you're right about what it is you think that it supports as far as what you believe is true.
You may say that about me.
I can say it about any human being. It's true about any human.
Believe in the religion that I believe, but I'm saying that about you, Tracie. Tracie, right? Yeah, Tracie. If you're in a dark alley walking ever in downtown and you feel like somebody's there, you should run. That's a correct feeling.
Right, but it doesn't mean that there is somebody there.
So I think I'll say that, yes, the feeling is correct, but the fact that there's a person there is not correct.
Right. I should never, though, think that the feeling is evidence for the person being behind the dumpster. The feeling is not evidence. It's just a response to what I believe.
The feeling is evidence of your response, but not the fact.
It's evidence that you should trust your instinct.
No, it's not. It's evidence.
It is, though.
No, it's not.
You shouldn't walk down that alley. You shouldn't.
We're stuck, so...
Can you at least admit that a feeling does not have to align with what is in fact true in reality?
That's the whole point of that conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is it doesn't make sense to say my belief in heaven is correct because I have feelings about it. There must be a heaven because I have feelings that there is one.
What I'm saying to you is your feelings were correct. No matter...
Right, but my belief was totally wrong.
There or not.
Right, but my belief was totally wrong.
But your belief, your response was correct.
Yes, but my interpretation of what that would mean if I ran, if I believed that my fear meant, my emotions do not change what's real, I guess is what I'm saying. My emotions do not impact what is really going on.
That's fair. That's fair.
Right.
It's not real because of your emotions. But however, if you're walking down that alley and you run because you have that feeling, and there is somebody there, you ran.
I could be. Let's make it like you're happy that you're pregnant, and then you find out you're really not. That it was a misdiagnosis, right? It doesn't have to be a dire life and death thing. You can have all kinds of feelings about things that in fact are based on false beliefs. You can have feelings about things that are false. And that's what I'm saying. When you say, I believe that my heaven is real because I have these instincts and these feelings about it, I'm saying those feelings have nothing to do with what is real. They are simply your responses to what you believe is real, even if you're wrong. So they're not evidence of anything.
They're evidence that you should trust your feelings.
No, all right. I don't know where to go with this. We'll just have to let this call lie.
It's true, though. It is true that you should trust your feelings.
No.
In that circumstance.
No, you should trust what is real. Whether you feel a certain way about it or not is irrelevant. You need to know what's actually going on. I don't care if I feel like my house has a good foundation. I want to know if it actually has a crack that's a problem. My feeling that it's fine doesn't mean that it is fine, and I want to know if the foundation is messed up. Wouldn't you?
Of course.
Yeah, so do you think I should trust my feeling that my foundations are fine and not get it checked?
No, you should get it checked.
Okay, then I shouldn't go with my feelings and I shouldn't trust just my intuition that the foundation is okay. When I go to buy a house, I need to get the thing checked by an inspector.
That's right. And so the same is, if you're walking down an alley, you should have somebody with you and say, hey, go check behind that dumpster.
Yep. Safety first, folks.
Yep.
Because I had that feeling.
Yeah, but the point is, your feelings don't support your beliefs. They are simply responses to what you already believe, whether you're right or wrong. I don't know how else to say it.
Well,
I completely agree with you.
Then next time someone asks you how you know that you're right about heaven and that there's not a hell that people are going to, don't say it's because I feel like it. I feel like that's what it has to be. I have good instincts. Huh?
I didn't say anybody was going to hell.
No, I'm saying people did, and you said, no, my religion says everybody goes to heaven. And I said, how do you know this? And you said, because you have these feelings and these instincts about it, and you'd know if it was wrong. And I'm saying, no, your feelings and your instincts don't tell you what's wrong.
It's not my feelings. It's because of the teachings of the church, because everybody...
The whole question is whether the teachings of the church are correct, and you used your feelings as support for how you knew these teachings were right. The whole question is whether or not the teachings are correct. You can't use the teachings to prove the teachings.
I mean, there's also evidence. There's
not evidence. There is no evidence.
You would have started with that if you had
evidence. If there was evidence, we'd have talked about that, 15 minutes ago.
20.
All right, yeah. And with that, I have to move on.
There's evidence.
I have to move on.
Go back again.
I hope that John got his bet worth. And that he's not at home screaming at us and saying, why didn't you say this?
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling, and we do appreciate that you did, own up that bet and give the show a call.
Is your show on the radio?
We're on YouTube right now.
And podcast.
Yeah, you're live.
Oh, no.
1 million people.
It's cool.
YouTube.
All right. Thank you for calling, Noah. Thank you. Okay, so I promised something, and I really kind of dropped the ball because that call went on, and now we're almost at what would normally be the end of the show. I don't mind going a little bit longer.
I got all day.
Okay, but we do have, I promised that we had a little secret thing to unleash, and I waited longer than I meant to, but we do have a new show coming out.
A new show.
And it's called Atheist Vanguard, and we have a promo that they want to play.
I love this promo.
I hope my pastor don't see this. How in the hell can anybody who love also have wrath? Isn't that like schizophrenic?
God was going to destroy and kill his own people, which he did many times.
Stoning?
Stoning.
Not in a good way? Individually, it would never occur to you to stone your child.
Exactly. It takes religion to make a good person do wicked fucking things.
If you live fundamentally, if you read that book and do what it says, you're gonna be a really weird dad. Magical Jesus bit.
It's the parietal lobe part of your brain that will bring you that feeling of oneness with the universe or a particular God or whatever.
So if you're praying for things, are you trying to change God's unaltered plan? And can you do that with prayer?
Like Moses at the burning bush, it's always been some crazy person out alone somewhere who has this alleged discussion with God.
I want to see him put some spit dirt on someone's nub.
Where the innocent person has to actually suffer so that the guilty person gets off the hook. Isn't that religious morality, doing what you're told no matter what is right? It's just so skewed away from reality and from being what is right and moral.
To me, that's naive and it's insulting.
It's absolutely ridiculous and it's offensive.
We don't really know what we're gonna find out unless we ask.
We really don't. You viewers are missing this, and those of you that don't go out with us, it's so much fun. We get to hear this stuff all the time.
Welcome to the Atheist Vanguard, a production of the Atheist Experience Network. And unlike some of the other shows on the network, the Atheist Vanguard goes into the streets and speaks to people. We want to get their stories. We want to know what they believe, why they believe it, and how they know it's true. Then we take those stories back to the studio and do some analysis and breakdown. Please join us on the forefront of the atheist movement.
I have a moral obligation to do my part in the battle to reduce the number of people that believe false things. To clarify, I do not want to reduce the number of people.
Yes.
Just to be clear, I want to reduce the number of false things those people believe.
And
behold.
And it's the anger of the Lord.
God
He's mad at
has
us, Phil.
struck down our power.
Behold the power of cheese.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Oh, that was so much fun.
Oh, my God.
Our power went out yesterday.
That was super fun.
Yeah. Right when I was talking about God, he turned off the lights.
I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, we made it back today, so I guess his wrath has passed.
Yeah, power's working fine today.
Yeah.
God likes me.
No flood, so that's cool.
All right. Even though Noah called. And so we are going to air the first, I guess, premiere episode of Atheist Vanguard after this show. So be sure to hang out. And I think it's like a 20-minute segment that we're running.
Sounds right.
We are going to take a few more calls, so we're not
All right.
quite wrapped. We'll go ahead and continue on. Again, if you all want to, if you're watching out from, a distance, but you're in Austin, maybe come on down to the Free Thought Library and join us for dinner. We're
Every
going
day
to
you guys
be
are here.
serving it up in just a little bit. So
Every day of the week you're up.
we're going to keep taking a few other callers a little bit off the, after the hour here. But let's go ahead and hit some of these folks that have been waiting. This is it Praful?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, are you in Hyderabad, India?
Yeah.
And you want to talk about blasphemy laws, and is your name Praful?
Yep, Praful. Actually, you got it right than more Indians do, so that's amazing.
I work with many people in India, and so I'm pretty good with the names, but I have never seen this one before. So you're on with Tracie and Phil, so let's talk blasphemy.
Yes, and before I start anything, I would like to say something first because I've been watching this show since 2017, and I know everyone from the show, Phil, Russell, everyone, Don, everyone, but I have a soft spot for you and Matt because you're the first people I saw for this show at least, and I agree with a lot of viewers. I think you're the Sigourney Weaver for the atheist movement.
I get that, yeah.
Say that.
Okay.
Because I can see you coming in an exosuit, like, get away from them, you believers, something like that.
I think Martin Wagner has a photo that's like me holding my cat and then one of her in Alien holding the cat where it's like this side-by-side thing. And so I can't hammer somebody for bringing it up because the other hosts mock me for it as well. So, yeah.
If there's a t-shirt on that, I would buy it gladly, seriously.
Oh, a t-shirt? Yeah. I don't think that's available yet. But anyway, blasphemy in India.
Okay. Yes. So the thing I wanted to discuss is the truth is I openly came out as an atheist 2 years ago. Before that, I was born into a Hindu family. My parents are not. They're not overly religious. They are God-fearing people. So they always everything is about God for them.
So you're not Brahmin, right? You're not like the.
I am.
You are?
I mean-
Wow. And so your people are, you're like, my parents aren't really that religious. I was like, oh, well, maybe he's not the, but yeah.
Actually, they are very religious. But when I say I don't want to use the term overly religious because they're very nice, they're very open to other religions. But deep down, they believe. I think they more care about God than anything.
Some of the most kind of open Indian conversations I've had have been with people from the Brahmin caste who seem to be less religious than you would think sometimes.
The thing is that there's another thing. I don't actually call myself a Brahmin because I think that will be ridiculous if I say that. It's like someone saying who's an atheist also admitting they're Catholic. I don't think there's any point to that. So so after that I started doing a lot of research because I became an atheist after coming through a lot of people, coming across a lot of people of different cultures. And a lot of my parents assumed that I am doing it out of spite against God. But the truth is, I even told them, like you guys say, how can I hate someone I don't believe exists?
Yeah.
So, it's a very long discussion. I don't want to get into that. But yeah, so the thing is, during my research and during all these episodes I watch you guys, I realized that you guys have this luxury of debating or even challenging religion. And I realized being born in a country like India, which I really admire, is I don't have that freedom because we have these blasphemy laws. And I came across this during one particular case, which I think you guys might find interesting. Okay. This happened in 2012. So there's this gentleman called Joseph Edamuruku, and his actual name is, the screen name is Senal. So apparently in 2012, there was a church in Mumbai which reported that the crucifix, the feet of the Christ, was there was water dripping from it. So people, I don't think the Catholic Church itself called that a miracle, but a lot of people nearby and a lot of people call that a miracle. And this gentleman did a research and he came out saying that the most plausible cause is that it's a dripping caused by the capillary action from a clogged drain.
I think I read this.
Yeah.
I remember this article.
But the thing is, the aftermath is the most craziest thing I've ever heard because some of these Catholic associations, I think they put a case on him. And he had to pretty much move to Finland to escape jail time.
Wow.
Because when I read the incident, I was confused because I didn't see any malice in his discussion. It sounded logical. It sounded something that actually might have happened.
Well, the logical part is the problem.
Yeah, that's not, I guess it's blasphemy once they claim it's like miraculous, then you can't say it's not. I don't know. You can't question it after that. Nobody may come in and examine. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow. So he actually had to move. No, I didn't realize that.
He moved to Finland because there was going to be an imminent arrest, if I'm right. And the sad part is there was another gentleman called Narendra Dablokar who's also a member of this Rationalist Association. He was actually shot dead, point blank.
That's not
so
good.
There were these. So after all these incidents, ever since that, I've always questioned the point of a blasphemy law because it's weird how someone can make a comment about a religion or a god, they get murdered or they get sentenced for prison time. And after all this, I was like, who's the one getting persecuted here, the religion or the people?
Right.
It was confusing. So I can't exactly discuss a lot of these things with everyone because some people think I'm being too radical, which I don't think I am. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
No.
And this affected me in many ways because my dating life definitely took a hit.
Wow.
Yeah, because the moment I say atheist, everyone is like, what do you believe in? Even my mom said this to me when I came out as an atheist. I love her to death, but she was genuinely confused and she was like, what about your morals? What are you going to believe in if you don't believe in God? And I was just sitting there thinking, I believe everything else except this proposition you're making.
Right.
So this entire thing, the way people are getting murdered. In Bangladesh, you hear a lot of atheists being hacked to death.
Right.
So I really want to put this out there saying, who are you trying to protect? God? I thought we're supposed to protect people we see, not a God we probably believe.
I see blasphemy laws as a way for humans to provide the vengeance of their own impotent God. Because if their God could do it, he wouldn't need blasphemy laws. So the very fact that there are blasphemy laws shows that that God is incapable of doing anything.
I mean, it's also kind of weird and sad to think about that because, like, imagine if I'm saying Tom Cruise did not do well in the recent movies. Do you think Tom Cruise will really care that some dude in India really doesn't like his acting? But God does. I even make these jokes. I'm a stand-up comedian as well. So I used to make this joke. I mean, is God so vain or so insecure that Tom Cruise, I mean, think about it. Tom Cruise, the guy from Scientology, I mean, I don't know if I should say it. That dude is more like, logical than him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, so yeah, I read a lot of religions about Scientology, Mormonism, and the more I read about every religion, the more I started to think, okay, this does not make sense. I mean, once again, I'm not. And the thing is, when I say this, people think I'm trying to offend people. My only thing is, I'm just trying to state what I see. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of annoyed with the whole blasphemy thing, and I hope that one day we get to the point where we don't have to do that.
Yeah, blasphemy laws are very scary. They're very scary. I totally agree, and I think that it's a good idea. I mean, even in the absence of the laws, just the social response sometimes can be.
Yeah.
I mean, there are social responses that go really extreme in some areas where people are killed or
riots
beaten.
for cartoons.
And it even exceeds the laws in the countries where they happen, and yet there's very little legal response when somebody goes medieval on someone else for a blasphemy thing or some sort of religious honor insult. And then they even when they do break the law and go out and like a mob kills somebody, they almost never get in trouble for it because...
Yeah, I mean, there were so many stories we hear in this, I mean, even in Pakistan for that matter. There was, I think you guys might have heard about this, there was a student who was pretty much killed in the dorm. He was hacked to death by some people. And so all these things and this whole thing came to my knowledge because there's a state called Punjab. I think you guys must have heard about it in India. Previously, blasphemy laws, we have it as Section 295A. Under that, you can get prison time for 3 years, I think. But I think Punjab has now made it a law where you can get life sentence if actually you are committed under blasphemy.
Wow.
Which is, I don't know how to react to that. And the thing is,
I honestly, I don't either, other than to, it's like all you can do is advocate for it. But the problem is these types of laws make it impossible to advocate.
That's the point.
Right? I mean, there's a woman that was a lawyer. There's a lawyer in the Middle East. I'm trying to remember what country it was. But I want to say it was Saudi. I've got the link posted on the Godless Bitches website for Facebook. And she basically was a lawyer who handled cases of women being arrested for removing their head coverings in public.
Not being modest.
Right. And so she was the lawyer defending them. And they basically brought charges against her as the lawyer for I forget how they phrased it, but it was basically promoting, immorality by defending these women. So literally, you can't even now have a lawyer to defend your due process, to exercise your due process with some sort of representation in court because now your lawyer gets arrested over this. And it's just like, you can't have laws that stop people from working. I mean, this when you start denying people any form of due process,
there's no freedom.
Yeah, that should never ever be tolerated by a population.
I mean, the thing that really upsets me is how to see a lot of nice people. Like, for example, I've been throughout the show, and Saad, I think, from Pakistan. He sounds like a really nice guy, but what really upsets me is...
listen to last week's show.
Oh, I did, actually.
Oh, did you hear him last week? I heard some stuff that he had said, and I was just like, whoa.
Oh, yeah, I think he said something on the lines of, I think Matt was pointing out how 9-year-olds, they are children at the end of the day, and he was saying something like, they're mature enough to use an iPad. And it hurt me really bad thinking that someone is bending, upside down just to make it work. I'm like, why can't you see that you are literally twisting your morality?
Well, I mean, I do think he went and thought about it a little bit. Like, based on his comments this week, I think he did put some thought into what happened last week. So, to be fair, he apologized for some of the things he said and how people might have reacted. But what you're saying, I mean, I don't really have much to add, right? It's just we agree, and our goal is to push against these kinds of things, right? I mean, you're like Phil is saying, if your God is so offended, let him take me to court that he's been defamed.
He'll judge me later.
Let
Leave me alone.
let him, let him sue me for defamation.
I say the
if he's
same
got a
thing. I
problem
mean,
with it.
I say the same thing. If God is real, I'm gonna burn like a paratha in hell anyway. So why would I need to get punished here?
Yeah.
And if you guys don't mind me saying, I just want to add a couple of things to Saad. I mean, I saw this entire thing last week, and like how Matt was trying to point out a problem, and he would completely ignore that and say, well, you have something good. I was thinking if today one of you guys have brought up the Brunei situation, I don't know how to say the name, sorry. The Sultan of Brunei or Brunei.
Yeah, Brunei is what we call it.
Yeah, Brunei. So when the Sultan is now planning on killing gay people,
yes.
and I'm sure if you brought it up, he would have said, but they do have great hotels.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he would have gone there.
I mean, it's hard to say. And I'm not defending anything he said. But I'm going to say that sometimes when people call in, we have conversations that what I describe it as we get them off the script. Okay, so they have to start winging it. And when you get a person who's used to a particular script that has to now go off the road and sort of off-road it, they're going to say really weird things. That's not abnormal.
Oh, yeah.
Things will come out of their mouths that later they will go back and hear and say, why did I say that? Or I can't believe I said that. Because they don't know what to say at that point, right? You're taking them into areas. Sometimes what the people do is just lock up, right? They just lock up and they don't even know how to respond to it. And if I think if I think a caller's doing that, I'll usually stop and say, you don't have to answer right now.
Yeah.
Why don't you go and think about it and maybe call us back?
I would like our new Mormon friend to go back and re-listen to
and he might.
segment.
I mean, I think he will. Yeah. But I appreciate your call. I wish we had a solution. Go ahead.
Okay, if I have to just point out a couple of things as well. I mean, I know it has nothing to do with the whole blasphemy thing, but I thought I'll just point out because I hear this thing a lot. How when people are making parallels to religions, they compare Lord Krishna to Jesus, and I know a lot of Indians are kind of very opposed to that because they say Jesus was born of a virgin, while Krishna, according to the religion, he was the 8th son, and so they say that the mother is not a virgin by any chance. She clearly had 7 children. But the thing is, this is something I picked up from a lot of books and even from ISKCON, the Hare Krishna people. It is said that apparently, I mean, I'm just putting it out there because I don't want people to get I don't want them to clogged with only one part of information. So the information I found is that apparently God himself appeared before her and told her, you don't have to have sex with your husband. Mental conjugation is how I'm going to be born. So they do, in a way, Krishna is born of a virgin because he was not born with sexual intercourse, but, mental conjugation. And at the end of the day, I'm not trying to debate anyone on this because, like I tell you, I actually got death threats, by the way. I'm a stand-up comedian, like
Holy
I mentioned.
cow.
And I'm not even big on any level. Like, I don't have any YouTube shows or anything. I just do live shows. But the whole point of me being a stand-up comedian is because I want to make jokes on stuff that are tabooed so that the more you laugh about something, the more the dogma is gone and the more you can actually sit down and start to analyze it.
Yeah, humor.
And when I did a joke.
Humor is a great way to address things when people aren't threatening you with death. Yes.
And the thing is, the 2 times I got death threats, one person was, I don't know how to label him because he pretty much shouted from the audience saying, I'm going to murder you or something in slang. And I told him I'm going to be waiting outside and he left. The other gentleman actually was nice enough to come up to me. He was very angry, but the whole point of me making the joke was to mention, I didn't create anything. I'm just telling you what's in the book. And apparently, if I say it out loud, people are saying, that sounds silly. And I'm like, that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to show you the same thing with a different, I don't know. So, I mean, I want to say it's a dream talking to you guys because I've been listening to you guys. I think I pretty much listened to every episode now in the past 1.5 years. I listen to you guys when I'm at the gym, in the office. And I think I want to ask you guys one last thing, if you don't mind me asking.
It depends on how quick, because we got other people still on the line and we're already late.
Quick. Oh, okay. In that case, I mean, I just want to see what you guys think about deja vu, because I experienced it a lot as well.
I think I just experienced it.
because believe it or not, while the call is even, before I got on the line, I actually I had this deja vu that I definitely saw this, me sitting, like it's 4:45 in the morning here, waiting to talk to you guys, and I felt like this I've definitely seen. I don't know.
Yep. Sounds like time for sleep.
All right.
Oh, yeah, maybe I'm just hallucinating, but yeah, my dream is to one day be on the show with you guys. I know, like.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you were. Today your dream came true. You were on the show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, but
yeah,
like Phil and you guys, it's a dream. It's a stupid dream, but it's just there. But thank you very,
it's good to have
much,
goals.
Yeah.
All right.
And please convey my belated birthday wishes to Matt.
I will. Thank you very much, Praful.
Thank you. No problem.
Okay. Let's just see. We are kind of tight on time here. I'm going to we'll try another one and see how it goes. Let's try our luck. We're looking at David in Washington who wants to talk about how Chris Langan's paper was disproved by... Who is it?
Chris Langan. You guys have actually had a couple calls about him before.
Okay, well, you're on with Tracie and Phil, and what's on your mind?
Hey, sorry, I was actually listening to a few calls this week, and Chris Langan kept coming up.
Uh-huh.
They kept on saying how smart he is and how his theory is going to come out and change everything. So I looked it up, and he actually has released the theory, the CTMU. And I'd like to read you what real scientists think about it real quick.
Sure.
Just a few quick quotes, and then this will be really fast.
I understand.
All right. So the first one comes from I'm going to say Rahel, R-E-H-L. He's a human-level AGI and cognitive theory researcher who contributed to the theory of knowledge, which is how we know what knowledge itself is. So he's very involved in this field, and what he says is, we didn't use anything from CTMU because there is nothing in it of any value. In fact, if you use the same rules that Langan did, you could create your own fake theory like CTMU in 15 minutes or so. It didn't require any intelligence or expertise. Apparently what Langan did was take a computer class at the same time he was taking some other classes on physics and reality. And he decided that humans are straight up comparable to computer systems, one-to-one comparison, and anything that might have been different between us, he ignores entirely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this has been completely and utterly laughed out of the scientific field, because it also starts out with not a premise or anything. It starts out with describing what science is. His actual theory paper does for the first 3 paragraphs.
That's weird.
It's so messed up. Cover to cover.
I mean, is he publishing for other scientists or what? Who's he publishing for?
No, he's publishing for the CTMU is his own theory. And this is what I think Andrew was the last one to tell you about this. Yes. And it got me really curious because I keep on hearing his name here and there. So I looked him up, and he's just, there's no science.
I mean, is this somebody that's publishing in research journals or?
Well, he has tried to. He put the CTMU out, but it didn't get peer reviewed because as soon as it got seen, people were just like, this. The way he put together the paper was invalid.
Okay, so it's just, you're saying it's just that bad.
It's just that bad.
Okay.
All right. Point made.
I'm there on Quora. You can look this up. There's scientist after scientist saying why did he write this?
You know what? I'm going to ask if I had plugged the blog earlier, but I would like to ask if you could go post some of the links to these quotes and to what you're pretty much putting out here on the air over at the blog. It's freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. And I do want to give you a heads up. I forgot to tell the other caller that I asked about the blog. You actually do have to wait for your first post to be moderated. So just a heads up, when you go to post, if you haven't posted on our blog before, there's a little bit of a delay that could go a day or two. I try to go and clear comments the first few days to kind of get things, greased. But don't freak out and start reposting your comment 20 times because it didn't show up. It just means you have to be moderated. So go ahead and just post that information there, and I think that would be extremely useful for folks.
Nice. Okay, I will do that. And the last thing about this call is Chris Langan's claim to his own IQ is physically impossible.
Okay.
Interesting. All right.
Real quick, he says his IQ is between 190 and 210. That's him saying it himself. But the normal IQ scale is a 15 standard deviation scale. So to have an IQ of 210, you would have to have a population of 100 trillion.
So he's really smart.
This very, quote unquote, very smart man with this quote unquote very smart theory.
I got the biggest brain. The biggest brain.
The smartest best theories with the biggest words.
I got the smartest thoughts and the best words.
I'd like to put out a warning to anyone who's about to go read the CCMU right now. If you've ever seen that episode of Friends where Joey has to write a letter of recommendation for Chandler and Monica, and he right-clicks every word and hits thesaurus, that is what Langan did.
That's sad.
It is a slog.
Okay, yeah.
So, good luck.
50-cent words. There you go. Shout out to the 50-cent word.
50-cent words, yeah.
All right, well, thanks, David. I appreciate your call.
Not a problem. I appreciate getting in and getting my 2 cents in.
All right, have a good night. So now we're going to Tom in Waterford, Michigan. You're considering atheism, and you want help breaking indoctrination, and you're on with Tracie and Phil. Tom in Waterford, Michigan?
Going once.
Well, I hope we didn't lose Tom. I know I didn't take him off. I know, but I'm waiting. They're letting me know in the control room to give him a little. Okay, we'll try putting him back on hold.
Maybe next show.
Yeah, and then we'll move on quickly to Josh in Missouri, who needs help countering claims, particularly subjugating women in the Bible. You're on with Tracie and Phil, and you're in, I think I said Missouri. Yeah. Hey, Josh.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
You sound great, yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, Tracie. Paul, how you guys doing today?
Phil, yeah, good.
Fantastic.
Oh, Phil, I'm so sorry,
That's
Phil.
okay.
It's okay. It doesn't hurt that
He
much.
answers to anything that starts with a P.
I'm just crying a little.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to have you both. It's great to be on the show. Long-time listener. I'm really excited to be here. So, yeah, just a quick shout-out to you guys' call screeners. I got my call dropped some time ago.
Oh, my gosh. I hope it wasn't me. I know I dropped one like last time I was on, and if it was me, I apologize.
Oh, no, I think that was mostly on my end, but they were able to resolve that pretty smoothly.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's really awesome of them. I really love you guys' call screeners.
All right.
What can we do for you?
Yeah, and another thing, I'm just, so I'm a student of Southeast Missouri State University and a proud member of the Secular Student Alliance here.
Oh, great. Shout out to SSA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going strong. We're getting more members all the time, and I do believe Matt collaborated with us some years ago, so that was pretty awesome.
Cool.
I'd really hope to get to meet him, and maybe you guys too sometime.
Now, do you guys have a group going to Cincinnati?
I think the members did mention something about Cincinnati pretty recently.
Make sure they contact American Atheists. There's money to help students from universities and high schools go and cut your costs.
Well, I will definitely talk to the president of the SSA and see if we can work something out there. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, weekend of the 19th, so make it quick.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the topic today isn't really, instead of doing a specific topic, as I told the call screener, what I have here is I've made a list of a number of very small, short, simple topics that I'd like to go through. I've watched you guys' episodes all the time, and I like to watch Matt's Atheist Debates videos. And out of all the things that I've covered and learned, these are just a few of the things that kind of give me a little pause and don't quite understand them all. But luckily, they're very short, very small, very simple. And
let's see how many we can hit. Let's start, and we'll see how many we can get through. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to burn through them all real quick and see, and so you guys can move on to other.
Let's do it.
So I have. You guys can pick one if it's any interest.
I can't see the list.
I have claims of. Sorry.
That's okay.
So I got claims of prophecy.
Okay, prophecy. Let's do prophecy. Prophecy's an easy one.
Let's go for it. So, how do you tend to address prophecy?
Okay, it depends on the claim. But a lot of times, what a person will do is they'll point, it depends on the type of claim that they're making, right? But you might have a type of claim where they say, this event was prophesied in a book, and then like 100 years later, this thing happened, right? And sure enough, you look at the book, and it's got a pretty clear prophecy. The king of the Midianites is going to blah, blah, blah. And then sure enough, this is what happened. A a lot of times when you go in and you look at like even something as simple as the Wikipedia encyclopedia, you can see information on the different like the authorship of the book, and it'll talk about the book and how it's written. And a lot of times those really specific prophecies that are like, whoa, that's pretty impressive, are interpolated, like they're later additions to the book. So the book will have a date that's like really old, and then you'll have some parts of it that look like they're written later. The Christian response to this is usually like, oh, but they're saying that because they don't believe in prophecy, and that's why but that's not it. There's a lot of reasons that they say that you can tell that different authorship is employed, and that this part is written by somebody and this part's written by someone else, and
One of my favorite things, especially if they look at something in the Old Testament that was prophesized and it came true in the New Testament, right. I will ask the Christian, would the authors of the newer books have access to the older books?
Right.
Because if I have access to older issues of Batman comics, can I incorporate parts of that story into a new Batman comic? Of course I can.
Yeah. And
so, a newer book having a story that fulfills something that was in an older story just means that they had the ability to read.
Right. So basically what I first was talking about was something that would be like, you can't really force the outcome of a war. Okay, or the falling of a kingdom.
Right.
But what Phil is talking about is if that prophecy is open and published and everybody knows about it, people can do a couple things. Number one, they can just make the claim that it happened, right? Like they can say later, yeah, this thing did occur and it aligned with prophet, and they're just making it up. The other thing they can do is they can actually make the prophecy happen, right? So we see that right now ongoing with like the nation of Israel. It fulfills all these prophecies to have Israel recreated. And so we've got people who are actually actively pushing to force it to happen because they believe the prophecy. And so they make it happen. And it's like, look, the prophecy is fulfilled. It's like, no, you basically saw this thing published that said this was supposed to happen. And then you went and forced it to happen.
I can make the prophecy that I will not be on this show next week.
Yeah. And he'll probably be right.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's, and all he has to do is look at the schedule. It's published. He's not on it, so he won't be here, right? I mean, it's pretty simple. And so when it comes to things like prophecy, the other problem is that there are things when they'll say, Jesus fulfilled all these prophecies, but the prophecies aren't about Jesus, right? So they'll have a prophecy that's about somebody else.
And there was one where Jesus intentionally fulfilled a prophecy, and the gospel says that he knew the prophecy, so he had his followers go steal a donkey. And I think if they stole the donkey from a farmer on a Sunday, they broke 2 of the 10 commandments just so he could fulfill a prophecy that he knew about.
And I have no idea. I didn't know they stole that donkey.
Yeah, they stole it.
But anyway, prophecy's generally not all that impressive, right? And the other thing is, if you ask Jews if Jesus fulfilled all their messianic prophecies, they're going to tell you no, right? So the people that actually, the culture that gave us those prophecies don't believe that Jesus fulfilled them. And so you've got Christians basically telling the Jews they don't know how to read their own books.
Yeah.
And, so it just, the whole thing is just a mess. Prophecy is just a mess. And there's nothing impressive about it. The few times I don't know, I'm not that impressed with prophecy. So does that cover prophecy, or do you have any other questions on that?
That makes that makes perfect sense to me. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So another small point to think about would be the subjugation of women in the Bible.
Okay.
I hear it come up sometime on the show, but we never really get into full detail as to like clear examples of this or how to properly address it.
How to do what?
How to properly address this issue of the subjugation of women in the Bible, or the lack of women's rights in the Bible. I've heard this being discussed on the show, but I haven't really gotten into full detail about like specific examples of this.
In the New Testament, Paul wasn't really into women having a whole lot of influence in the church.
Women were not allowed to teach a man.
Yeah, and you couldn't speak. And if you had a question about something that was talked about in church, you had to keep quiet. And then when you got home, ask your husband to tell you what it meant. And they should, not ever cut their hair. And if they did cut their hair, they should wear a veil.
And they should cover their hair because the giant angels come down and rape them. But it's clear over and over and over. And you can go to like evilbible.com or some other sources and find endless examples of where women are second-rate citizens, and it's really easy to solve because that's wrong, and they're not. They should be equal in all ways.
And I mean, this is New Testament stuff. You could go back to the Old Testament, it gets worse.
Yeah.
The New Testament is pretty tame by comparison, right? Like in the Old Testament, it was just pretty horrendous.
Or you can look up Lot's daughters. That's a fun one.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a story. Early porn.
Yeah.
Early fetish porn.
Daddy porn.
Yeah.
Whoa, daddy.
And so they...
and you know, anyway, those daughters had an amazing skill because they had to get their dad drunk enough to apparently not know he's screwing his own daughters, but yet not so drunk that he could actually screw his own daughters.
Right. It's like, I mean...
There's a fine line there.
I got to say, for an old dude...
Yeah.
Being that drunk...
Bang a gong, get it on. I mean,
that's virile.
Yeah.
Right? I mean... But anyway...
And you know why they did that? Because he didn't have any legitimate heirs. Because they were women. They were his daughters. They don't count.
Yeah, that's right.
So the only way they could get him legitimate heirs was to screw him and produce sons.
Yeah. Oh, interesting factoid about American slavery, like U.S. slavery, right? It used to be that they were trying to base it on biblical slavery. But in the Bible, if you had a slave that had your children, they were your children.
Yeah, that's not cool.
No, but I'm just saying, if you had a woman that was like kept as a slave either by your wife or by you, and you had children with her, those children were considered to be
your responsibility,
your legitimate children. Yeah. Like you said, the women children could not be heirs, but they were still the master's children.
Yeah.
But then in the U.S., we had some laws, some cases, early court cases, where people sued and said, my father was free, and so I am free, according to the setup. And they won. And then immediately they changed the laws to say that if you have children by your slave, they're slaves. They're not free. They're like the slaves' kids, right? Not your kids. And so one of my friends pointed out, and he's like, the sick thing there is that you had people selling their own children into slavery.
And it comes down to power. It comes down to money. And allegedly one of the reasons the Catholic Church said their priests can't get married is because they would be married and then have children. And the church would have to take care of the priest's children when the priest died.
And this is a messed up aside. This is like a so messed up aside. But it's like, I can't imagine having babies so that you can prosper by selling them all into slavery. It's like, what in the world were we doing? Like
money.
Wild. And it was supposedly like a response to the fact that you couldn't import them anymore, so you just made your own.
Yeah.
Woo. And so, but anyway, with regard to the women's subjugation, Google women keep silent in the churches. Women not teach a man. If you Google those, you'll get some verses. I will warn you that there are apologetic responses, so you can go and look at church responses because there are, obviously churches that have women pastors. Those churches do not interpret those verses in the way that anybody else reading them would. So when you look at those passages, see what you think about them first. Give them a full reading. Don't just look at the verse. Look at the chapter and, get your own assessment there based on the context. And then go out and look at what these other folks are saying and see if you think it makes more sense or less sense.
Well, that is a great idea. I'll definitely look further into that.
Yeah.
So just two more small points to touch up on. I've been in some debates before, and one in particular comes to mind where this individual tried. He was telling me about he was giving pretty much miracle claims, specifically a claim in which there was a miracle claim that was witnessed by many people, more than 8. He said, I don't really remember the specifics, but like some miracle happened, and he said that there were like 8 or 16 people in the room, and they all saw this at the same time, so it couldn't have been a hallucination because all of these people saw the same thing. And I know that's an appeal to personal experience, but I don't really know how I'm able to address that.
Yeah,
story.
you can't address it because there's no way to recreate it, right? This isn't something that you're going to be able to see again.
I would address it by asking if they've ever heard of Penn and Teller. Because you can go to magic shows today where thousands of people can see something happen that seems miraculous and none of them can explain
Right,
it.
but I mean, let's say that you and I and Phil, getting our kicks on, we pull out a Ouija board and we start playing with the Ouija board, and we start asking this Ouija board like really intensely personal questions no one knows the answer to, and like we're getting, me and you are playing and we're telling Phil all about his history, and his brain is blowing because we're right, and we're telling him his grandmother's middle name and his great grandfather's first daughter's name, and like the whole stuff that just could not even be possible, like way beyond the bounds of what we would say would be like coincidence. And this happens, and we're all there, and we all experience this. And then we go out and we start telling people, like, you're not going to believe what happened, right? Like, we did the Ouija board, and it was telling us all these things about Phil's life, and he didn't even have his hands on the board. It was just, the two of us doing it. And it was me and Josh, and we're getting all this personal info, but we told him what his bank account was. And it was wild, when he showed it to us on his phone, and we were totally right down to the penny. I mean, just crazy stuff. So at the end of the day, number one, we don't know how we did it. Right?
Right.
We have no idea how we did it. We put our hands on a plastic thing that moves on a piece of wood, and we asked it a question, and it started giving us answers there's no way it could give us answers to. And we have no idea how that happened.
Now, then it's just a matter of...
Now, we know that Parker Brothers... is selling it, and that it has a traditional history of being some kind of ghosts or demons or spirits or something but we don't know what that even means. What does that even mean? Like, is this Phil's grandmother's dead brain? Like, I don't even, what is talking to us, right?
Unexplained does not mean God done it.
Right. And so first of all, you have to ask yourself, how much arguing and how much debunking do you want to do of miracle claims? Because there's a lot of miracle claims. The main problem with miracle claims is that nobody really knows how the miracles occurred. They know what they're going to tell you they think happened, but they can't show that they really have a cause, right? I like to say things that do not exist cannot be the cause of other things, right? So if I say God caused something, the first question is, does God exist?
Prove it.
Because if God doesn't exist, then God didn't cause it. And so the only way to know if God can be a cause is to know that there's a God that exists, right? So we've got this weird thing happen that we can't explain. And at the end of the day, if we want to say that a God is doing it, we need to demonstrate that there is a God. We need to demonstrate there's a God that talks to people through a wooden board and a plastic topper, and that it, cares about telling me about Phil's bank account, right? Like we have a lot to go back and fill in blanks for to get to God did it.
I think I now need to go change my password.
But I mean, and that's for the ones you can't. So when someone comes on, for example, on the phone, and they just tell me something that is just outrageous, right? And in my head, I'm inclined to say, you are probably lying to me. Usually it's rude to call somebody a liar. And so I will just say, if this happened to you, how do you know it was a God, right? Like, how do you know that? I'm not going to say that it didn't happen. I'm going to say that there's no way I can know that it happened. You're telling me something that I agree would be really bizarre if it occurred. And I'm not sure that it did occur because even the story from a dozen people, there's more than a dozen people talking to me about alien abductions at, UConn or whatever that is, like the UFO con.
That's real.
Yeah, but well, the other guy said, right, that was Yahweh was an alien, I think. And so, but the point is, miracles, they don't really demonstrate anything except that something weird happened.
Yeah. So in the end, they're basically just going to remain a mystery until
they're kind of fun to debunk if you have all the time in the world, but it's up to you. I mean, I've debunked a few that actually taught me things, right? Like I learned about a weird natural phenomenon of giant rainbow shadows that people can cast at certain angles in the mountains. And I was just like, wow, I didn't know that people could do this. Somebody was telling me a story about a giant rainbow shadow angel with no face. And when I was just like, what? And I went and looked it up, and there's pictures of this thing. It's a phenomenon, right? And I'm like, wow, that is so bizarre.
That's when you're above the clouds.
Yeah, it's just this weird thing that you get like a little hiker and they cast this humongous shadow and sometimes it has a rainbow effect.
I did that in Hawaii, actually.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. So you can actually learn some interesting things by going in and looking up like miracles, but a lot of times it's just people that are, exaggerating whatever happened.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So I just got one last quick topic to poke on. So there's this idea that I've discussed with some theists about what exactly is preventing some people from knowing God or understanding Him or otherwise coming to the conclusion that He exists. And one thing that I often hear is that that human beings are somehow flawed or imperfect or fallible humans, and this somehow makes it harder for us to get there.
See, this is easy for me because about 20 years ago, I was in a Burger King, and God showed up and said, Phil, I want you to go make as many atheists as possible and keep doing that until I come back. And so that's what I've been doing. Yeah, it just claims that some people claim they know God. Some people claim that Yahweh is an alien.
Yeah, the question is, how do they know the claims are accurate?
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea that I get when I hear these things is that they're saying that because humans are flawed or because we're fallible, that's something that prevents us from.
Yeah, but who made us flawed then?
Sort of special sight.
Well, no. Here's the thing, right? There's something called. Have you ever heard of the Euthyphro dilemma?
I've heard it, but I'm not quite sure if I.
EUTHYPHRO, something like that. Go Google it. Basically, it's an interesting question, right? So it basically asks a question about morality, and it leans toward what you're describing. It basically says, you trust God's morality because you have a flawed morality, and you don't know what's really moral, so you go with what God tells you is moral, right? That's the argument.
Right.
And so what Euthyphro is saying is, well, wait a minute. Is it moral because God said to do it? Or is there like actual morality and God is appealing to that and He sees it more clearly than we do? In which case, could we just figure out what's moral, or is God constrained by morality? Or like, how do we know God is more moral, right? How do you know that? And so what's interesting is, if you have a broken moral compass,
yeah, I knew you were,
and somebody is telling you to go and do a thing because it's moral, what are you using to judge that what they're telling you is actually morally correct?
Right, yeah.
So if you have flaws that make it impossible for you to know what's best, and God tells you something is best, based on what do you believe that? I mean, how do you assess that what He's telling you is best is actually
and
best?
How do you know that He's the good guy, not the bad guy?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Glad we could help.
Okay, yeah, great. That wraps it up. I had a few more points, but I just want to let you guys move on to more callers. So
we're moving on to dinner. We're moving on to dinner. And so thank you so much for your call. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I want to, that's our callers all cleared out. I want to say thank you to the audience. Thank you to my guest, Phil. So glad you could come and sit in and make some good points. And I want to thank the people working behind this wall, the magic folks that do that. This is where the magic happens, right? There you go. There they are. It does not happen. Well, it happened tonight, right? Everything worked, except for me a few times. And we're going to go to dinner. But with this, I need to say that we have Atheist Vanguard coming up directly after. So if you're at home and you're watching live, do not touch that YouTube dial. Stay tuned in because we're going to see Atheist Vanguard coming up right after this.
I was kneeling and praying, and he actually took me to the base of the cross. When I came to the Lord, I doubted. I didn't think he wanted me. I prayed and asked him, and I didn't feel anything. And I thought you were supposed to feel this magnificent oomph or whatever. And
the Holy Spirit entering you, right?
And so God actually, I was kneeling and praying, and he actually took me to the base of the cross. And I saw Jesus, and I saw that he died for me. I know he died for everyone, but at that moment I knew that he would have done that just for me.
Excuse me real quick. You saw, visually,
yes.
Literally, he took you there? Was it in your mind? It wasn't in your mind?
It was, yeah.
You had a
I ain't drinking my hand.
vision?
I don't know exactly how it was. I just know what I saw.
You know what you saw. Do you think maybe that was just your mind, just like a daydream or a hallucination?
I was wide awake.
You were wide awake and you saw. How do you demonstrate that to me? Can you show me that? Or
I don't know about you. I'm just telling you what happened to me.
That's a personal thing.
That God showed me.
Showed you. Okay, and that was the time you came to Christianity?
That was when I formally made my life commitment to the Lord.
Have you ever had doubts about God?
No.
Wow.
No? She seemed scared of that last part when you asked her, did you ever have doubts about the Lord? She's like, no.
Not at all.
You don't want to admit to that.
One of the very first things she said was, I was doubting.
Right, exactly.
Like she literally, at the beginning of the video, she says, you know, I was trying to get this feeling of, you know, this oomph, and she didn't get it, and she thought
doubted if the Lord wanted her.
Yeah, exactly. So how is that? Maybe she meant after she had that experience, she never doubted God afterwards. Is probably what she meant.
Let's talk about what she said, because I got it written down here. This is really, really interesting. First of all, here you were, Josh, doing this wonderful interview. My big mouth, I come and butt in. You're trying to do an interview. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Here I just walk. I could resist.
Yeah,
I can't resist.
But
I don't have much patience. You saw it on my face here listening to this stuff. But so she said, when I came to the Lord, I didn't think he wanted me. Now, I remember all the scriptures and Revelation and all. Whosoever will, let him come freely to me, saith the Lord. I mean, the scripture's full of, if you seek, you will find. If you knock, it'll be open unto you. That's supposed to be. So I don't know where she got that idea. She didn't know if God wanted her. That was absolutely absurd.
Well, I think that's a pretty common thing, actually, because for, I think, most people, when you go to church and you know, put your hands up and accept Jesus into your heart, I've done it. There's no feeling.
You were Pentecostal?
Huh?
Did you do the Pentecostal full gospel thing?
No. This was it happened to me actually at a Christian concert in my hometown, where they, you know, after one of their songs in the middle of their set, they came out and said, "Oh, who out there hasn't accepted Jesus into your heart yet?" And you know, I was trying very, very hard to get Jesus to come in here and help me out, bro. And you know, I was ready. I needed that support, and you know, did the whole thing. And the truth is, I didn't feel anything I wanted to, but that feeling of like, oh, maybe, you know, I'm not wanted.
Well,
that's
they played on your emotions, though. That's why they do that, right?
Of course.
Altar calls for offerings, tithes and offerings. We would always play music and get your emotions going.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's all about anyways. It's an emotional plea.
Yeah. Maybe it was just that they were a really shitty band. Maybe that's why my emotions weren't
maybe you
kicked up
should
and I
have
didn't feel anything.
transported away from there to the cross. You know, but the thing, and you asked her, you know, was it a real thing? You know, she said she was transported. God took her to the foot of the cross.
To the base of the cross,
And you asked her, was it a real thing, and or was it just in her mind? And she was, no, you know, it was
awake.
real. I was wide awake.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my question that I would like to have asked her is, okay, so you were transported there, you were transported to that moment where Jesus supposedly was on the cross in that time in that moment. You were transported across time and space. And so
No.
if you were really there, were there other people there? Did you hear other people? Were there people interacting with you?
Yeah.
Did you smell things? Did you see other things? What was, I mean, because truly, if you did, and you were transported across time and space, I want that.
So she did specify. We didn't show it in the clip, but the interview does go on a little bit, and I try to get some specifics out of her in that. And no, she was transported across her house, if I remember correctly. Right?
I missed that part.
It was across her house or something like that, or across a room. It was some physical space she moved. She wasn't transported to the cross like back in time, but she was transported to the base of a cross. Okay. If I'm remembering that correctly.
But see what you viewers are missing this, and those of you that don't go out with us, it's so much fun. We get to hear this stuff all the time.
That would be impressive. No, I mean, obviously, it'd be impressive to be transported into any other spot of history, But even just being transported across your house.
That would be amazing to me. Yeah. I'm on my knees and all of a sudden, I'm somewhere else. I mean, that could very well be it. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know what the possibilities really are here, but, it could be that while she was on her knees, she had some kind of episode and she had, major hallucinations, and without knowing it and without realizing that any time had passed, perhaps she moved herself across the room, and when her brain was able to, come down from whatever happened, it was as if she had been transported. Like, it's not impossible to explain her experience.
Yeah. But when people are deep into prayer or even meditation, I mean, you can do any kind of meditation, and it brings I think it's the parietal lobe part of your brain that will bring you that feeling of oneness with the universe or a particular God or whatever. So she may have been in a state of prayer, meditation, and you're going to have all kinds of weird feelings and thoughts and hallucinations. This is where we need Hector Garcia here, the psychologist. He could explain this
True
to
enough,
us.
yeah.
So there were so many different things that it could be, And then she said that I saw Jesus. I should have asked her, what the hell does he look like?
Yeah.
Did he have a beard?
We should get
that would have been great.
And
that would have been
another
great.
guy we interviewed, Roy, together, who says he saw the face of
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
We can see if there's any similarity.
What did he say? I forgot what Roy said.
Roy was very specific in that it was a white Jesus.
He was a white guy.
Yeah.
He saw the face of God in the courtroom.
What he said was like, I think it was like the pictures is what he said that you see of Jesus, which, they're white. It's white Jesus, and even if you believe that, if you believe that this is true and the Bible was written where it was written and Jesus was in the area that he was in,
white.
there wasn't a white man. No, that wasn't a white man.
No, not in that part of the country.
Right.
Definitely not.
No. Do a little study, do some research. How about when she said, I saw that he died for me. You're right, I can't read my own writing.
That's horrible.
Oh, my gosh.
That you would expect somebody to die for you. You know what I mean? I mean, I would die for somebody like my grandson or my son or my granddaughter or even, certain friends. I might put my life on the line for them, but I wouldn't expect and I wouldn't be happy if somebody died for me. That would not make me happy. I would feel, sadness and horrible, and think I wish that person hadn't had to die. I wish they were still here with me.
Well, this is a whole thing about vicarious sacrifice. This is so immoral, if you really think about it, that where the innocent person has to actually suffer so that the guilty person gets off the hook. That's what a vicarious sacrifice is.
Yeah.
The lamb that was slain for the sins of the earth. So, and that's what this whole concept of Christianity is. It's just so skewed away from reality and from being what is right and moral.
Exactly.
So she said she saw that he died for me. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
She reads it in this book.
Right.
But she saw when she was there at the foot of the cross. Did she say she saw him on the cross? I don't remember.
No, not on. I don't
dying, dripping with blood and suffering.
I don't necessarily think that's what she experienced, but I think she was just at a cross of some kind. It could have been, on a mantle in her house or some cross somewhere. Maybe the TV had a Christian channel on and there was a cross on the screen. I don't know. She didn't specify.
When you hear this stuff every Sunday morning, I mean, it goes into their mind and they take it as a truth.
Right.
1,000 repetitions equals a truth to some people.
And he didn't really die though. Anyway, so that's a bunch of baloney too.
Yeah,
even
right.
within their own,
Jesus was God.
He was raised from the dead later, so he didn't really die for your sins.
Well, he went straight down to hell for 3 days. He was hanging out down there for 3 days. Remember?
He's all powerful. He was probably
then he went up there.
He probably wanted to go have some fun before he went to heaven.
Like, no, Dad, come on. Right? Yeah. Please, can I go back just for a little bit?
It's going to be boring
It was his spring break.
Yeah.
I want to see Mary again.
Mary, yeah.
Magdalene,
There's so many Marys in the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm all confused. There's so many Marys in the Bible.
But,
Probably.
exactly, he died for our sins. No, even if you read it within, the Bible, he didn't actually die for your sins. Even if you believe that he died, he was risen back from the dead, so he didn't really die at all for your sins.
Well, he had to go through the suffering of dying. That's
pretty horrible.
Does it, I guess?
What horrible things do these people think they've done to deserve someone to die?
Everyone's made mistakes.
Right.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Right,
and
but common little daily mistakes. I mean, did they do something that was horrible? Did they murder a person? Did they abuse a child? Did they do something horrible that
someone did?
Someone needed to die for them to be redeemed, or was it just
someone did?
Well, they shorted somebody some money, at the cash register, or something like that. Does that deserve? You need somebody to die for your sins?
Yeah, or you lusted, as they say, the biblical term. You lusted after this
someone.
beautiful young
in
lady.
your mind, thought control, thought police. Yeah,
unbelievable. It reminds me of Ray Comfort. We all know who Ray Comfort is.
Let's not.
Yeah, he'll go up to people. I would like to call him and talk to him about this, but he'll go up to people.
He won't take your call.
Oh, probably not. Hasn't somebody tried talking to him?
We've tried. So there are a couple of shows that we have at the ACA that we heard rumors that he was going to call in to possibly talk heathen, not necessarily Atheist Experience, because Ray and Matt have had interactions in the past, and Ray won't. Ray will not debate anybody without like multiple degrees in the subject. It's just his way to skirt, actually good debaters like Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah. I don't think I wouldn't want to debate Matt Dillahunty if I were a Christian. Would you?
I would like to see it because Matt would just absolutely eviscerate him, and not in a contentious way, but just with reason and logic. Eviscerate is a strong word that people use on AXP a lot, but yeah.
Right. Oh, here we go. I know, she said, what I saw. She said she knows what she saw.
Right, because it was convincing.
Right, because you asked her, how can you demonstrate that to me? And she said, well, I'm not saying anything about to you. I mean, I know what I saw. So, of course, that's just the simple way.
Can't argue with that.
You cannot argue with that. And that is how they all, I think, God, my personal relationship with God, that's my personal relationship with God. You can't argue with me about it because it's my personal relationship with God and Jesus and the whole mystical thing. It's a mystical thing. And of course you can't argue with that logic. There's no logic to it.
Yeah.
It's all subjective, though. It's all this personal relationship, this personal feeling, this personal message I got from God. And even if you look in the Bible, all these abstract lone prophets out there like Moses at the burning bush. It's always been some crazy person out alone somewhere who has this alleged discussion with God and orders from God and all. It's always these people that can never just actually demonstrate, and others are never really around that can hear it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, who was in the garden? Here we go. Who was in the garden in Gethsemane with Jesus when he was allegedly talking to his daddy and praying? And who witnessed that? Who heard it? Nobody, right?
Well, there were like some 200 or something people, or 2,000 people that saw him come out of his tomb, right? Saw that he was risen, or I forget exactly what. There was a people always refer to it in the Bible, but there were 200 or 2,000 witnesses, and it's like
of the actual not of the actual tomb or the rolling away of the stone that hell at the tomb. No, not that. But yeah, I tell you,
something they viewed.
It's all
exactly,
subjective.
yeah.
It's all just like she was talking about. For me, I get that from everybody.
Yep.
New Age spiritualists, Muslims, Hindus. It's all this personal stuff.
And why can't he do that on a larger scale? Like you said, it's always a single person away from anybody else. This message or this personal thing that happens to him. Well, why does God do that like that? Why doesn't he just, big head in the sky, say to everybody, look, this is me, here I am. And yes, I want y'all to be good to one another and treat each other with respect and care. And, and that's what I want y'all to do. So just do that. And, yes, here I am. This is me. I am real.
Yeah. Yeah, here's a scripture that I use all the time. I've been using it for years. In 1 Peter, I think it's chapter 2 or 3. The scripture says, God is not willing that any person should perish and die in their sins, but that all should come to repentance. So if this God really wanted us and all of us who require evidence to not go burn in hell and to come to repentance and to know Jesus, right, and to go to heaven, the happy place, wouldn't he just show us something? Not just this little subjective, definitive,
something
right?
definitive for everybody, not for every single person, but for everybody.
You wouldn't need faith then.
Right.
You wouldn't need faith, and faith is important.
You have to.
Super important to believe things without any rational reason to believe in them. Yeah.
Well, could Christianity survive without faith? Absolutely not. They couldn't. That's what they got.
Because without that, they wouldn't be able to get money. They wouldn't be able to tell you to tithe 10% because that's part of faith. That's what you believe is that, by doing that, it's apparently somewhere somebody came up with the idea that God wants you to tithe 10% of your income, and you just have to believe it's true. Yeah. Give it 10%, so how...
Well, it comes right down to disobedience, too. It says it in Malachi chapter 3, give tithes into the storehouse that there may be substance in the house, saith the Lord. And then the promise is that he'll bless you abundantly if you give all this. And that didn't work. I tested God. I wish I had all that money back when I was a young man. Gave a lot away to God and never got it back.
It doesn't necessarily work in politics either.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Because this was really probably one of my favorites. Just watching that little clip, just listening to this woman.
Yeah, I think we got all the big points in there.
Yeah. I was excited though. She was transported through time and space. I thought, man, if that's true, I want that because there's other. I don't want to go back to that. There's a lot of other shit that I'd like to go back to though.
Like beam me up, Scotty. Something like that. Just transport me.
I'd like to be at the when Lincoln was gave the Emancipation Proclamation. I'd like to see that speech. Or Martin Luther King Jr.'s. I had a dream speech. Boy, take me back to some of those historical things, man. If you can do that, do it, please. I want it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks a lot for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day.
See y'all later.
Bye.